The Immortal Stranger. Starting as a traveling merchant, this video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 176. The morning light dyes red. Zhao Chen surrounded Yanu, and the morning light dyed the clouds red. When the first rays of morning light broke through the night and illuminated the morning glow, Zhao Chen and Yan Hongxia in the formation space finally finished their own work. Because they use the bodhisattva joyful weaving, a true dual cultivation method, to blend each other's true ki and true essence. Zhao Chen's harvest was quite rich compared to the previous half-baked dual cultivation that could only be regarded as spontaneous exchange of true ki. First of all, although his true ki's Black Emperor blood flow transformation has not been fully practiced, the progress has exceeded half. Although this is because the effect of the initial transformation is good, even if the efficiency decreases later, it will take at most 4 or 5 such dual cultivations to practice. If he relies on himself, even with the blessing of the talisman position, Zhao Chen thinks it will take a month or so. Secondly, with the help of Yan Hongxia's strong true essence, he opened the ear orifices that had become extremely loose when he obtained the escort talisman position. This process is natural and smooth. At this time when the sun rises in the east and the day and night alternate, Zhao Chen slowly opened his eyes after finishing his practice. The golden light in his eyes was heavy. He saw the colorful lights and purple air rising into the sky. The sounds of insects, crawling, wind, and whispers were clearly transmitted to his ears, taking away the tranquility of the night and radiating the pulse of life. Then he glanced at Sister Hongxia in front of him and suddenly felt that his kidneys were full of energy. Well, if the ears are deaf, the essence is in the kidneys, and the ears are the orifices of the kidneys. This is a normal phenomenon. Although he thought so in his heart, Zhao Chen still silently put on his clothes to avoid showing unnecessary ugliness. On the other side, Yan Hongxia, whose face was red and about to bleed, also fastened the buttons of her shirt. She was so flustered that she was completely unlike the cunning Hongxia sword. It was okay when she was practicing before, but now she really just wanted to escape as soon as possible. But she was in this array space and had no way to go. What did you gain this night? In order to ease her embarrassment, Zhao Chen took the initiative to start the conversation. Seeing the question, Yan Hongxia calmed down and then showed a look of joy. The quality of Black Emperor's blood passing sword ki has improved a lot. It is estimated that it will reach the height of Red Emperor's nourishing essence sword ki in 7 or 8 more times. In addition, my mana has finally reached the 4th level. The difference between the innate magic and the general magic is that in addition to the ability to cast the spell with the mind, the power can be enhanced as the mana increases. So the mana reaching the 4th level means that the power of Yan Hongxia's innate magic has increased by at least 30 to 40%. Of course, the reason why she was able to turn the 4th level overnight was mainly due to the dragon meat she had eaten before, and this dual cultivation was just the finishing touch. Then congratulations to Miss Yan, you will definitely not be ranked at the bottom of the human outstanding people list next time, Zhao Chen said with a smile. But when she heard about the human outstanding people list, Yan Hongxia's face suddenly fell, and she said angrily, even if the ranking is improved, I guess there will still be no good comments. Zhao Chen thought of the introduction and comments about Sister Hongxia on the list, nodded in agreement, and then asked curiously, indeed, but who are the people who compiled the human outstanding people list? Why does it feel like they have a grudge against you? The background of the Human Outstanding People List magazine is mysterious, and most people don't know who compiled it, but I know it clearly. Yan Hongxia gritted her teeth and said hatefully, it is actually a joint property of the county magistrate and the Li family. The county magistrate. I remember he was a descendant of the great Zhai royal family, named Mingcheng. He had the audacity to travel with Zheng Qinggan before her death, but was frightened by that sinister woman's inhuman side, and was bedridden for several days. While Zhao Chen was thinking about it, he heard Yan Hongxia continue, the county magistrate Mingcheng is a branch of the Gao Chang King's line. Although he is uneducated, he is not a bad person, and can speak reason. The problem is his half-brother Mingluo, the so-called editor-in-chief of the human Renji list. The first grudge I had with him was because the leader of a horse bandit we were arresting was a family member of his concubine. He came to me to plead for mercy and ask me to show leniency. Naturally, I would not agree, and we ended up parting on bad terms. So in recent years, he has always used the human Renji list to discredit me and leak my details in various ways. But that's all. He's a bastard from a side branch of the royal family, but he can't do anything bigger. What's more, the real review power of the list is in the hands of green robe young master Li Chengsheng. But it's really annoying. No wonder even I was caught in the crossfire and came up with a poem titled "Why Are the Gold and Silver Feathered Clothes Infecting the Peach and Plum Blossoms in the World?" While Zhao Chen sighed, looking at Yan Hongxia's indignant expression. He couldn't help but comfort her. As long as you make progress quickly, the information he leaked will all be misleading to the enemy. Yan Hongxia glanced at him and said unhappily, "Do you think everyone is like you, with your cultivation soaring every day? Then do you want to continue practicing dual cultivation for another day and experience the feeling of flying?" Zhao Chen glanced at Sister Hongxia with a smile and said meaningfully. Yan Hongxia's face turned slightly red. Thinking about the various benefits she got last night, she was quite tempted for a moment, but she finally shook her head and said, "Forget it, there are still many official duties to do during the day, and if I really don't show up for a day, those forces that are eyeing me may not be at ease." "Isn't that better?" Zhao Chen said in surprise. "Before the Feng family's magical power arrives, it is better not to provoke some dark scum at will, lest they jump off the wall with desperate on." Yan Hongxia paused here and asked, "Did Fairy Zheng agree to come to Dunhuang as a guest?" Fei Meng had to accompany her parents for the last night yesterday to sever the relationship and did not come back, so I haven't asked yet. As his thoughts turned, Zhao Chen shook his head and said, "No response yet. Then, I wonder if the master can send someone?" Yan Hongxia asked hesitantly. The master she mentioned naturally refers to the master of the star chariot. The master has his own ideas. As his followers, we just need to pray. Zhao Chen responded vaguely. "Yes, I was too reckless." Yan Hongxia lowered her head and said respectfully. Seeing that it was about to dawn and morning exercises were about to begin, Zhao Chen began to remove the formation diagram and asked casually, "By the way, there is an auction at King Guyan Tower tonight. I can bring 3 people with my invitation. Do you want to come?" Yan Hongxia thought for a moment and shook her head. "No, I got some clues yesterday. I can use the opportunity of the auction to check it out." After saying goodbye to Yan Hongxia, Zhao Chen put away the formation diagram and sneaked back to the restaurant. He was about to change his clothes when he heard a cold female voice behind him. "Where is Mr. Chen going to steal the beauty?" Zhao Chen was startled, and while taking out the musket, he looked back. He saw the beautiful and heroic Sakura Dragon Fairy Zenkingan sitting in a corner of the room. Chapter 177 Storage Bag. Zhao Chen finally breathed a sigh of relief when he found out that the person was Zenkingan. He did not summon Wang Daoyi from the star chariot. After all, it was quite scary that he could deceive his ears and spiritual perception and appear so close to him. As for how to judge whether the other party is the real Zenkingan, in addition to the pupil technique Dangsui that can see through some illusions, disguises, and prohibitions brought to him by the Starboat Guardian, the sapphire necklace worn on the other party's neck also provided proof that sapphire was a gift from Zhao Chen to Zenkingan after he raided the Z family of Blackwind Castle. It had been certified by the Star Chariot, so it was easy to distinguish the authenticity. At that time, I gave the mysterious ice feather robe to Fei Meng, and Zenkingan suddenly asked for a gift. It seems that she is not just setting up a character. As his thoughts turned, Zhao Chen put away the famous gun Scorching Sun and answered Zenkingan's previous question generously. "I have improved my cultivation slightly by practicing with Sister Hongxia." He had to be generous. After practicing together for a night, he was full of Yan Hongxia's aura, even in his true ki, which was very obvious in the eyes of the master of supernatural powers. However, it was obviously Qi Fei Meng's own character setting. Why did I really have the illusion of being caught cheating when facing Zenkingan? When Zhao Chen complained in his heart, Zheng Qinggan's mouth curled up slightly, and she said coldly, "She's quite honest." Then, she changed the subject and said lightly, "I have already helped you get the things from the Che family. Of course, they are just some floating wealth. The shops and land purchased by Che Yugang over the years are still taken over by the Li family." What she didn't say was that the young man Li Yunfeng also tried to use those properties as a betrothal gift to marry her. In the end, before she could refuse, the elders of the Li family came forward to imprison him and compensated the floating wealth of the Che family. After the loss of a Dongsuan real person, the Li family is adopting a comprehensive contraction strategy. How dare they offend the daughter of the aristocratic family for no reason? What's more, the other magical powers of the Li family are not fools. Even if they didn't react when Song Weiroo entered the Li family's blessed land, they would definitely guess that the evil god had an insider. After thinking about it, and the head of the family, Li Fuchen, who chased Song Weiroo and disappeared with him, is the biggest suspect. Although this matter cannot be made clear for the time being, the head of the family will naturally be excluded at the moment. It's not bad to get some floating wealth. Zhao Chen, who made a fortune in Chenlu Villa, didn't care much about the things of the Che family at this time. In fact, he is more interested in the young man named Li Yunfeng. Unfortunately, he was put in solitary confinement. Zheng Qinggan took out a scroll, a jade slip, and a tower model more than half a meter high from a bubble that suddenly appeared in her. These three things should be the most valuable. Zheng Qinggan first stretched out her white jade index finger, pointed at the jade slip and said, "It contains the White Emperor Shippo sword art, which is one of the two swords that Che Yugang got from the Li family. I know you have already got the Black Emperor Tangsu sword art from his niece Che Qingsu, so this time I want another one. Well, the Li family allowed me to pass this sword to one person, so you don't need to hide it when you use the White Emperor Shippo to transform in the future." For Zhao Chen, who has the purple household immortal secret, the White Emperor soul-serving sword art is at most just a reference to learn the powerful moves recorded in it, but it is very important to Yan Hongxue. At this time, she has already practiced the Black Emperor blood-passing sword key and the Red Emperor nourishing yuan sword key, and was rewarded with the Green Emperor soul-protecting sword arts for her previous contributions. If she can get the White Emperor soul-serving sword art, then the 5 swords will only lack the Yellow Emperor middle master. Taking the jade slip, Zhao Chen used the star chat to check it out, and found that there was a special restriction in it. Once it was read with spiritual perception, it would stimulate a very high level of power to entangle the soul. It is usually harmless, but once someone who has read it wants to pass on the sword art, it will immediately stop it. But such a restriction did not bother Zhao Chen. He directly sold the jade slip to the star chap and then spent star coins to buy back the content of the White Emperor soul-serving sword art. Although he paid a lot of difference, it was just as the cost of lifting the restriction. Seeing the jade slip disappear from Zhao Chen's hand, Zheng Qinggan was not surprised. She took the half-meter high tower model and briefly introduced it. This is the famous 8 treasures tower of Cheyu Palace. Liu Zhenlan was happy to leave the court. The 8 treasures tower was called Xiaoyu Palace. This was once the poetic name of Cheyu Palace. Zhao Chen nodded slightly, waiting for Zheng Qinggan's subsequent explanation. Zheng Qinggan said calmly, "It doesn't have many functions. It can only be enlarged into a tower of 17 or 18 meters. It's not bad as a camping site in the wild." At this point, she paused, glanced at Zhao Chen and said, "But it has all kinds of facilities inside, which is very interesting. You should like it." "What do you mean by very interesting, and I like it?" "This is slander." The corners of Zhao Chen's mouth twitched. How could he not guess what kind of interest was in the tower built by a guy who practiced Joizen? He glanced at Zheng Qinggan, who looked serious on the surface, but had a smile in her eyes, and said unhappily, "Can't the facilities inside be dismantled?" "No, the facilities inside are integrated with this building. After dismantling it, this magic weapon will be useless." Zheng Qinggan's expression was serious, as if this building and Zhao Chen were a good match. Then, as if she remembered something, she added, "By the way, after this building is enlarged, although people or things can be brought into it, if you want to shrink it to its current appearance, you must take out all the things brought in. Otherwise the function of this building cannot be activated." In other words, this thing can't be used as a storage prop. Zhao Chen frowned. He thought this thing could be used as the mansion technique in D&D, but now it seems to be useless. Of course not. Relatively stable space storage items must be opened up by top-grade magical powers, and magic cannot reach that level. Is it the same for the widely circulated storage bags? Zhao Chen asked curiously. Although he has obtained several storage bags recently, he really doesn't know how they are made and where they come from. Of course. Zheng Qingyuan nodded and explained. Most of the storage bags on the market are from the Beikaiou and jointly established by the court and the major sects. They are made by some masters of top-grade magical powers. However, because the materials used are relatively cheap, the lifespan of this type of storage bags is generally between 3 and 5 years. Well, some fine products may be able to reach 10 years, but they are hard to come by. There are Beikaiou shops selling storage bags in the capitals of each state, and those you got should all come from there. Chapter 178, Position. Storage bags are not a rigid need for monks, but they are definitely what everyone desires. However, they are made into consumables with a validity period of only a few years. TSK, this 100 skills courtyard of the Imperial Court is really good at making money. But who can blame them for mastering the core technology? After all, there are very few magical powers involving space. Only aristocratic families, upper sects, and a few prominent families and major sects can produce them themselves, and the cost is definitely much higher than that of the mass-produced 100 skills courtyard. Even if they also sell storage instruments, they must take the high-end route, and the mid and low-end markets are completely monopolized. After sighing for a while, Zhao Chen looked at the last item that Zheng Qingyuan took out, the scroll. What is this? This is a painting of the joyful bodhisattva. Zheng Qingyuan said, unfolding the scroll with a serious face, revealing a portrait of a woman with fair skin and beautiful appearance. This woman has a pure temperament without any charm. Although her appearance cannot be seen clearly, she can arouse the deepest desires in people's hearts, making people want to conquer and ravage her. Zhao Chen only took a glance and turned his head away, because if he continued to look, he could not guarantee that he would not show his ugliness. At the same time, his understanding of bodhisattva joyful weaving increased a lot in an instant, and he even developed a new double cultivation method by analogy. What is this? Am I extremely talented in this area, even better than swordsmanship? Zhao Chen's thoughts were in a mess, and he tried hard to distract himself from thinking about the appearance of the bodhisattva in the painting. Seeing him like this, Zheng Qingyuan rolled up the scroll and introduced it softly. This is the true appearance of Lion Du Bodhisattva, one of the 9 happy bodhisattvas of the ancient Buddhist happy lineage. It is a rare magic weapon. If you can offer innate fairy spirit to it, you can get many benefits, including but not limited to magical skills, a night of bliss, and it is even very likely to be granted a 5th grade position. The last point is the most precious. Although her tone was light, it sounded like a thunderclap in Zhao Chen's ears, making his mind buzz. The special features that he relied on were also found in this world? Or is it just the same name, but different in nature? Zhao Chen calmed down and asked in confusion, registration? What is this? Zheng Qingyuan glanced at him with a smile, but soon hid the expression and said calmly, registration is a qualification, a certificate to borrow power from this world and strengthen oneself. However, ordinary practitioners, and even most of the supernatural practitioners from prominent families, actually don't know the existence of the proof. Zhao Chen chewed on this word and asked sincerely, why? Because the aristocratic families and the Daojins and Zenjins of the upper sects have jointly blocked the news and concealed the fact that the essence of practice is actually the receiving system. Zheng Qingyuan said this while wrapping the entire room with foam and disturbing the secrets of heaven with the heavenly phenomenon Nine Yi. Even if telling you one person privately does not violate the Daojin's prohibition, you still have to be careful. Zheng Qingyuan added. The essence of practice is the receiving system? This doesn't seem to be right. Many of the human practitioners I know don't seem to have received the. Zhao Chen frowned, full of doubts. Do you know where the pinnacle of the cultivators was before the Taichu Daojin preached? Zheng Qingyuan stroked her hair and asked instead of answering. It's the 9 apertures. As far as I know, in the second year of Tangwang, before the Zhao Chen heaven change, the pinnacle of Zhuanshan realm cultivators was the 9 apertures cultivator, Zhao Chen, who had been confirmed by many parties in the historical mist, answered quite affirmatively. Yes. This is also the pinnacle that cultivators can reach without relying on the talisman position. It has been like this since ancient times, and there has been no change. The only change is that after Taichu Daogen preached, he incorporated the method of praying to heaven and earth for granting the talisman into the practice method, and passed it on to all living beings. From then on, cultivators with magical powers, strong evil spirits, and supernatural powers appeared in the world one after another. At this point, Zheng Qinggan's mouth curled up slightly, revealing a faint smile with an ambiguous meaning, and then asked, in many Taoist books on exercises, the descriptions after the 9 apertures are all methods of building a spiritual platform, and building a bridge between heaven and earth, right? Have you ever seen any Taoist book that wrote about the essence of the spiritual platform? Zhao Chen thought about it carefully and suddenly realized that there really wasn't any. All Taoist books were just talking about how to build a spiritual platform. So, the spiritual platform and the bridge between heaven and earth are actually rituals. To pray for a certificate from the Zhuanshan realm, Zhao Chen asked in a somewhat dry voice, combining his experience as a traveling merchant and a bodyguard who received the certificate. Yes, but Zhuanshan's granting of the talisman now starts at the 6th rank. Therefore, most cultivators who have completed the refining of the orifices actually have to take a huge risk when they take this step. They may be backfired by the talisman and torn apart by their vital energy. Therefore, only those who have opened all 9 orifices, have complete and high quality true ki, and can maximize the strength of the soul, and then transform their spiritual perception into spiritual consciousness have a greater chance of bearing the 6th rank. Alas, in theory, it would be safer to accept the 7th rank at this stage. Unfortunately, Zhuanshan no longer grants the 7th rank after the destruction of the ancient times. However, it is precisely because they are directly granted the 6th rank that the mana cultivators can condense the ki and refine the evil as soon as their mana is transformed and cultivate their innate magic. This was unimaginable in ancient times. Of course, the core disciples of the aristocratic families and the upper sects have their own Shengsuan or even the Taoist ancestors who grant the 7th rank, which does retain the ancient tradition. Haha, this is mainly because the fundamental skills of the aristocratic families and the upper sects are combined with their own talisman systems, which will have a mysterious effect. For example, if I can get the 6th grade talisman that the ancestor stole from the Dragon King after my magic power has been cultivated to the 9th level, I will immediately be able to condense 8 innate magic spells, and they are all the basis for the construction of the 1st grade magical power, the immortal body of the evil dragon, and the 2nd grade magical power, the 7 swords of Yi Mu. But unfortunately, although I'm the legitimate daughter of the Zheng family on the surface, my parents are of little influence, so I did not have a share of the 6th grade talisman at that time. I could only go to Yingzhou and kill a seriously injured Yi Mu Azure Dragon by myself, and obtained the real dragon evil spirit and Azure Dragon Ganki from it, as well as many other precious Gangsha auras, and completed the prerequisite innate magic foundation of the 1st grade magical power, the immortal body of the evil dragon, by myself. Only then did I get the attention of the family, and when the 5th grade talisman was allocated, I was given a place. As for the so-called secret that is circulated in the Gangsha cultivator circle about the need to find an opportunity to advance in supernatural powers, it actually refers to the method of using various means to obtain the 5th grade talisman. Without the granting of a talisman by a true lord or a Taoist lord, there are only 2 ways to obtain a 5th grade talisman and advance in supernatural powers. Either you have to hold a specific ceremony to please certain powers of Shengsuan or even Taoist lords that remain between heaven and earth. Of course, you can also directly please certain powerful demons, but the risk is too high, and there are very few successful cases. Most people who do this either go crazy or turn into monsters. Or you have to please this world and have Zhuanshan grant you the corresponding talisman. Update progress, 24/45. Chapter 179 Wu-Tai. So that's how it is. Starting from the realm of mana in this world, you need to obtain the corresponding certificate, that is, the so-called before you can practice to the next level. In other words, if you can't obtain the 5th grade, even if your life magic is matched reasonably, you still can't break through. No wonder Ma Guangliang is so desperate for the so-called magic opportunity. No wonder he said, that opportunity is easy to get in the eyes of the core children of the aristocratic family and the upper sect. After all, they have the ancestor to grant the. In addition, Zhao Chen can also grant the 5th grade, but this requirement seems too general. What is considered pleasing the heaven and earth? Is there no standard? Who is Taichu Daochen, and why can he let the heaven and earth grant the? Also, what are the differences between the ancestor, the heaven and earth, and my Xingcha? But it sounds like the heaven and earth talisman is just a simple certificate, and will not grant cultivators special abilities. And the ancestral talismans of various families and clans are more like my Xingcha talisman. As his thoughts raced, Zhao Chen had more doubts in his heart. He looked at Zheng Qingyuan, who was not wearing any makeup, but was still stunningly beautiful, and asked carefully, the reason why the families and clans hid the news of the talisman position is that they are worried that the cultivators will ask the evil gods for it, right? Zheng Qingyuan cast an approving look and nodded. That's right. After all, if there is a lack of opportunities, the cultivators can still hope for a lucky break, and a few lucky people who successfully obtain the heaven and earth talisman can give everyone hope. But once it is made clear that the lack of the talisman position is the reason for the inability to advance, then most of the Gangsha cultivators will probably do whatever it takes to obtain the talisman position. And if you come into contact with evil gods or great evils before the 2nd level of Dangsun, not only will you not have a good end, you will also become an accomplice of the demons. In the final analysis, it is because the number of talisman positions in this world is limited. The 6th grade talisman is okay. As long as the soul is strong and the ceremony is complete, Zhao Chen will not hesitate to grant it. But starting from the 5th grade, the conditions become more and more harsh. The life magic that can spell at least one magical power is only the basic requirement. One's own destiny, contribution to Zhao Chen, character, etc. are all indispensable. However, since the conditions for people who practice the same kind of exercises to receive the talisman are generally the same, the rules have gradually been summed up. That is, the ceremony that triggers the opportunity is usually said. In addition, although the talismans of the ancestors of the aristocratic families and the upper sects seem to be easier than the talismans granted by Zhao Chen, the conditions are actually more harsh. Because this kind of talisman is complementary to the inherited skills of each family, those who do not reach a certain level in the practice of skills, and have not established the corresponding foundation cannot receive the talisman. Take me as an example. If I fail to build the foundation of the immortal body of the evil dragon, then I will never be able to obtain the 5th grade talisman dragon descendant granted by my ancestors. Even if the ancestors favor me and force me to grant the talisman, it will be difficult to succeed. The 5th grade talisman dragon descendant. As expected, it has a name just like the Star Chariot's talisman. But why doesn't the Star Chariot grant talisman select the skills? Or is the 5 emperors paying homage to the truth magical power the corresponding skill of the Star Chariot's talisman? Is it true that Taichu Daochen has some kind of connection with the Big Sun Star Chariot? While thinking in his heart, Zhao Chen asked casually, the 5th grade rank Dragonborn. Does the rank have a name? The Zhao Chen rank does not. It is just a qualification, and does not contain other knowledge and authority. But the rank bestowed by the ancestors of various sects and families mostly has a name, and each rank is different. Well, the name is mainly to help their disciples understand the power contained in the rank. Zheng Qingyuan answered simply. It can be seen that she doesn't know much about the rank. In other words, the Zhao Chen rank is just a blank slate, while the ancestors rank carries a professional template. Zhao Chen nodded thoughtfully and said with emotion, the old man Taichu Daochen opened up this rank path, which is really a great merit. Speaking of this, he seemed to remember something and changed the subject and asked again, by the way, Qingyuan, do you know the specific origin of Taichu Daochen? In every history book I read, he seems to have appeared out of thin air. Upon hearing this question, Zheng Qingyuan pondered for a long time before answering uncertainly, I don't know much about Taichu Daochen. I've only seen a few speculations. First, due to the close proximity of the time when Teichu preached, and the star god temples were no longer effective, some people believe that Teichu Daojin is actually the incarnation of the star god. But the people of the All-Stars Society, especially the non-evil fundamentalist faction among them, do not agree with this view. They are the followers of the star god, and should not make mistakes. Second, and this is also the mainstream view, it is believed that the 5 innates, including Teichu Daojin, are actually the incarnations of the Zuanshan world consciousness. Therefore, after the Jianshan heavenly change, when Zuanshan was invaded by the evil gods, Teichu Daojin and other 5 innates would loosen some of the authority of heaven and earth, allowing humans to truly embark on the path of cultivation. The essence of Teichu's preaching is that he is releasing or sharing the authority of heaven and earth in the form of a talisman. Third, those who support this view feel that before the Jianshan heaven change, there was no shortage of talented people among humans, but no one had broken through to the realm above the 9 apertures. It is very likely because the heaven and earth at that time did not allow it. Third, there is the view of those evil organizations. They say that the 5 innate gods are actually also foreign evil gods, but they just polluted the world first. But this statement is too absurd. Even those evil god believers don't really believe it. She paused and added, the records about Teichu Daojin are very scarce because of the historical gap when the ancient times were destroyed. If you really want to understand, I'm afraid you have to go to the head of the sect, the first holy place for cultivation of our human race, Daoxunman, to look it up. After all, Daoxunman is a sect that has been prosperous from ancient times to the present, and has gone through countless tens of thousands of years. Although its Taoist master Teichu Daojin is not one of the 5 Tei, he is the first supreme being who has proved his Daojin status outside of the 5 Tei. Take Xiao Daojin. How can I ask such a being about something? King Guyan, you think too highly of me. Zhao Chen, who made fun of himself for a few times, thought about the possibilities mentioned by Zen King Guyan, and also tended to the second one. After all, he had seen those indescribable things outside the world with his own eyes, and it was normal for the world to save itself. Speaking of which, the reason why Teichu Daojin opened up the world's authority was probably because he had no choice. After all, if he didn't give humans the talisman, the evil gods outside would give it. In that case, there would be guides everywhere. But knowing only this, it is still impossible to determine the specific connection between Xingcha and Teichu Daojin. Forget it. It seems that it is difficult to explore the secrets here in this era. Fortunately, there is still the historical fog. As his thoughts turned, Zhao Chen stopped probing and asked another question that concerned him. Will the core disciples of the aristocratic families in the upper sect be awarded the 9th and 8th grade positions? Zen King Guyan had only said before that the positions granted by heaven and earth start from the 6th grade, but she did not say that the positions granted by the ancestors of the top forces were also the same. Of course. Zen King Guyan nodded lightly, and her pair of bright black eyes met Zhao Chen's eyes, and she said meaningfully, with the blessing of the position, the cultivation speed of every core disciple of the aristocratic family in the upper sect will not be inferior to you. There are even people who are improving faster than you. This is one of the reasons why I came to you today and told you about matters related to the position. Although I don't know where you got the position, you should be more restrained and try not to continue to expose your cultivation speed. The hemorrhoids are healed, and it's finally back to updating on time. Chapter 180 The background of the 4 evil blades. Zhao Chen himself has been disguising his cultivation speed. He fought with outsiders several times, but he did not use all his strength to stimulate his true ki. He only relied on his superb swordsmanship and spiritual power to fight the enemy, creating the image of a young man with a strong soul and a high talent for swordsmanship, so as not to let people notice the fact that he has perfected his true ki. After all, his current strength is only 2 orifices, which is nothing for a person who has just cultivated true ki for a month. As long as there are corresponding orifice opening pills, most cultivators can do it. Now most cultivators are cultivating true ki and refining orifices at the same time. Most people open 7 orifices and the progress of true ki cultivation is still stuck on the Ren and Du meridians, when the inner world is first formed. If they knew that he had perfected his true ki in 1 month and opened his eye orifices, they would probably arouse suspicion from people from the aristocratic families and the upper sects. As for why his true ki is stronger than that of ordinary people, it is not difficult to explain. After all, Huang Ji, the owner of Yukifang, once gave him dragon meat without any concealment. Countless thoughts flashed through his mind. Zhao Chen nodded to Zheng Qingyuan and said solemnly, "Don't worry, I won't. Even if I have to go all out, I will disguise my identity." But who would have thought that Zheng Qingyuan picked up the scroll again, looked at Zhao Chen with black and white eyes and said, "However, with this painting, you don't have to worry about anything. Even if your cultivation speed is comparable to that of the core disciples of the aristocratic families and the upper sects, at most they will think that you have won the favor of the pity bodhisattva and granted you a position. Well, your current reputation is also very suitable for this painting, so it will not arouse suspicion." She said it very sincerely, but the more Zhao Chen listened, the more something was wrong. "What do you mean my reputation is very suitable for this painting? If it is associated with the joyful bodhisattva, my reputation will be completely hopeless in the future, right?" Seeing his furious look, Zheng Qingyuan raised the corners of her mouth, as if trying to suppress a smile, and then said seriously, "You got the other party's true meaning at the first glance at the portrait just now. I'm afraid you have already comprehended 1 or 2 methods? Haha, Fei Meng's clone is really cold on the outside, but dark on the inside. But if you can insist on not changing your personality, sooner or later you will let you experience the methods I comprehended." Zhao Chen viciously complained in his heart, and then said, "So, you said you came to remind me to be cautious, but it was false, and you told me to use this scroll to conceal the speed of cultivation? You haven't come into contact with the existence of the Dangsuan level now, so you can still conceal it. But once a real person notices you, he can find out your abnormality with a little calculation. So, why not find something to mislead?" At this point, she suddenly blinked her eyes, revealing Fei Meng's playfulness, which gave this cold beauty a different kind of charm. "I guess you have a way to mislead, so that's how it is. Fei Meng's plan is really thoughtful." Zhao Chen barely suppressed the ripples in his heart and asked, "But what about the happy bodhisattva? Is she willing to take the blame? Since she can be granted the position, the other party must still be alive, and she has not even transformed into a demon. Otherwise Qingyuan would not use it to cover up for Zhao Chen. This Liandu bodhisattva does still exist, but her body was sealed in a cave world by Sheng Zuan's engine of the King's Haomeng family. Her main consciousness has not yet awakened, so she will not expose you. Of course, you still have to try to avoid the people of the Meng family, otherwise they will definitely take the painting by force." Zheng Qingyuan explained briefly. Since she brought this painting to Zhao Chen, she had already figured out its origins. "Then I'm relieved." Zhao Chen nodded, put the scroll into the high-end storage bag he found on Alan, and then asked again, "You just said that telling me about the position of the talisman and concealing my cultivation speed was only one of the reasons why you suddenly came here this time. Then is there any other reason?" Zheng Qingyuan looked at Zhao Chen with clear but deep eyes. "Isn't wanting to see you a reason? If this goes on, I'm afraid I really can't control myself." Zhao Chen met the eyes of the girl from the Zheng family dimly. Zheng Qingyuan immediately turned her eyes away and said seriously, "It's because there are some problems with the main body. Well, she has left Dunhuang now." Zhao Chen's eyebrows frowned immediately and asked anxiously, "Are you okay?" "It's okay. Speaking of which, this is because she got an opportunity in Chenlu Villa, but it also caused a lot of cause and effect." Zheng Qingyuan sighed rarely. Zhao Chen knew that Zheng Qingyuan in front of him was actually no different from Fei Meng. It was okay for him to accompany her in role-playing on weekdays, but now he asked directly, "Why don't you come to me for help? This is a calamity. It might be more troublesome and more dangerous with you here. Even my clone is just helping out and dare not directly participate." Zheng Qingyuan said solemnly. "Is that so?" Zhao Chen did not doubt anything. After all, Fei Meng would never joke with him about serious matters. "You knew that this so-called calamity would come? Is going to sever ties with relatives just an excuse?" He said that with Femeng's temperament, she would never spend the last night with her parents. Zheng Qingyan turned her eyes away and said evasively, she did go to sever ties with relatives first, so it's not a lie to you. Taking a deep breath, Zhao Chen held Zheng Qingyan's hand and said seriously, we are friends. Even if you don't need my help, please tell me next time, instead of leaving without saying goodbye like this time. Zheng Qingyan looked back at him with sparkling eyes and replied with okay. Forget it, since she still wants you to come, it means that she has an idea about the so-called calamity, and I have nothing to worry about. Zhao Chen shook his head and once again distinguished Qi Fimeng and Zheng Qingyan in his words. He also let go of the other's hand and guessed, well, what she said before about traveling to Shuzhou should be true. In order to solve the so-called calamity this time, do you need to visit other Buddhist relics? You really know her. Zheng Qingyan's tone was still cold, but one could still hear a hint of jealousy. This guy got into the role so quickly that I couldn't catch up with him. Zhao Chen's mouth twitched, and he changed the subject. By the way, I actually have something to talk to you about. Then, he told her about the possible big move of the four evil blades. Zheng Qingyan thought about it and began to calculate using the 9 yaoyi of celestial phenomena. After a moment, she smiled and said, so that's how it is. This matter has something to do with me. Her calculation ability was several levels higher than Li Fuan's, so she caught some clues. 3 of the 4 leaders of the North Kishan Lianhuan village have obtained part of Song Weiyuru's inheritance. They may be one of Song Weiyuru's backup for returning to the current era. Chapter 181 Qingyan Tower. Since Qi Fimeng has enlightened Zheng Qingyan to be one of his 33 incarnations, the karma of his original body must also be taken over. Zheng Qingyan's biggest karma is the murderous revenge with Song Weiyuru and the other 2, so naturally he is very concerned. Evil god Song Weiyuru? I remember hearing you say that he used the spring and autumn pen and the Li family Xianyang immortal gate map to enter the historical mist, so he can't come out at will. Zhao Chen is very wary of Song Weiyuru. After all, this is a ruthless character who has no bottom line in his actions, and his strength and calculations are extremely terrifying. He can even trick the Dangsu and Zenran. Even if you and the main body enter the mist of history, you can only come back after completing the mission, let alone them. Zheng Qingyan's expression did not change. She continued to calculate, but she could not get more information. She had to give up temporarily and continued, I couldn't calculate what Song Weiyuru's specific arrangement was, but I can be sure that it is related to the goal of the 4 evil blades in Dunhuang. Can you calculate the current location of the 4 evil blades? Zhao Chen asked. If you can calculate it, then just take them down directly. No matter how famous the 4 evil blades are, they can't beat the supernatural powers. I can only calculate the location of the 4th village chief Zhao Wuan. The other 3 evil knives are probably accompanied by top grade magical cultivators, and my 9 yaoyi of celestial phenomena can hardly get too much information. Zheng Qingyan shook her head slightly, but this 4th village chief is probably not arranged by Song Weiyuru, and taking him down may alert the enemy. Sure enough, there is a magical power backing these bandits. Then we can only wait and see. Zhao Chen sighed helplessly, suppressing his disappointment. Only 3 of the 4 evil knives have inherited Song Weiyuru's legacy, and the remaining Zhao Wuan may not know the truth. Indeed, Song Weiyuru has a 4th grade magical power called 3 evil knives of the blue sky. He deliberately created 4 people, probably to prevent others from linking the 4 village chiefs with him. Zheng Qingyan nodded slightly and said calmly, the 3 evil knives of the blue sky, Dragon Fang, Tiger Wing and Dog God. This is most likely the same as the Yuan sect where the master is, and the names are adapted from mythological stories. As his thoughts turned, Zhao Chen suddenly saw Zheng Qingyan take out a transparent mask and put it on his face. The next moment, her face, hairstyle, and figure all changed. In less than half a minute, she turned into Qi Fimeng. The only difference was that the clothes she wore were a few sizes larger. I'll stay with you in my original identity, so that I won't reveal the fact that Zheng Qingyan has come to Dunhuang. In the abandoned castle near Dunhuang, Zhao Wuan, the 4th village leader who had simply disguised his appearance, took an invitation from his subordinate elder Saijing Sun Yu, and took a look at it. He then casually pointed at his 2 disciples and said, "The invitation says that you can bring 3 people into Kingan Tower. Just the 2 of you, plus elder son, come with me into the city." "Yes, master." His 2 disciples were young and not very calm, and they were overjoyed when they heard this. "Look at how useless you are." Zhao Wuan slapped each of them on the head in frustration, then turned to elder son and asked, "Does the big boss know our plan?" "Yes. But the big boss said that this operation is entirely yours, and you don't need to ask him for instructions." Sun Yu replied respectfully. "It seems that the boss has really reached the critical moment of being promoted to divine power. Then we can't drag our feet here." At this point, Zhao Wuan suddenly paused and asked again, "Is there any unusual movement in Human?" "No. Li Fuan is still in charge of Human and has never left." Sun Yu shook his head. "Where are the 7 heroes of Emonan?" Zhao Wuan asked again. "It is certain that Sima Guangming, the strongest of the 7 heroes, has not returned to Dunhuang, and Li Changsheng is still drinking wine in Human. As for the other 4 heroes, I have arranged people to stop them tonight." Sun Yu reported. "Very good, then we will go to Dunhuang now." Outside the Yiren camp, after watching the new lieutenant and his confidants go to the auction organized by King Ganta, Yan Hongxia, who was hiding in the dark, sneaked into the camp. She bypassed the sentries and finally entered the lieutenant's room. This new lieutenant has been out of the city privately several times recently. Well, it's a good opportunity to check his study and see if there are any useful clues. At 6 o'clock in the afternoon, a carriage stopped in front of a courtyard with a lawn. Although Kingan Tower is called tower, it is actually more like a Western style palace. Only the tall bell tower in the center makes it look barely worthy of the name. The reason for this is that Zenwei, the owner of Kingan Tower, is obsessed with Western style architecture, so he spent a lot of money to invite several Western architectural masters to build this Kingan Tower. After getting off the carriage, Zhao Chen took Qi Meng, Moqiu, and Ning Meng through the open lawn in the courtyard and came to this building that was said to have spent 500 strings of cash on design fees. The outer wall is made of white marble, inlaid with exquisite carvings and reliefs, but the content of the carvings has nothing to do with the West. Instead, it is the scene of the famous preface to the pavilion of Prince Teng in the ancient Tang dynasty. The setting sun and the lone wild goose fly together, and the autumn water and the sky are the same color. The Zen family's unique skill is called the solitary wild goose setting sun skill, which may have some origins with preface to the pavilion of Prince Teng. As his thoughts turned, Zhao Chen had already led his 3 female companions along a wide stone staircase into the main entrance. Here, a huge dome is supported by 2 rows of towering marble columns. The entrance hall is decorated with gorgeous murals and artworks. The most eye-catching one is a huge, sword-shaped crystal chandelier hanging above the roof, bright and dazzling. But Zhao Chen faintly sensed the notarization power contained in it. This chandelier seems to be a replica of the 16 golden star Libra sword. Where did the Zen family get this treasure? Maybe I can ask later. While Zhao Chen was thinking, Tao Zhao also came in with Feng Kang, Zhao Zan, and an old man with white hair and beard, but his whole body was still as sharp as a sword. As a local gunsmith in Dunhuang, he naturally had an invitation. The burly Feng Kang looked at Qi Meng, Moqiu, and Ning Meng beside Zhao Chen, and then looked at Tao Zhao, Zhao Zan and the white-haired old man beside him. His eyes could not help but be a little resentful. Why are there all kinds of beauties on Zhao Chen's side, but only old men on his side? It's so unfair. Update progress, 25/45. Chapter 182 Doubts. Zhao Chen didn't pay much attention to the jealousy deliberately shown by his senior brother, but focused on the old man with white hair and beard, and dressed in black. If he guessed correctly, this should be the close friend of the gun casting master Tao Zhao, the Iron General Lu Qi. He has already achieved the perfection of Gangsha, and has mastered the 18 life magics. In the human area, his combat power is enough to rank among the top 3 in the Gangsha realm. The former Lieutenant Purple-Bearded King Khan Kyo Zhao, who ranked 9th on the human outstanding list, once challenged him, but was defeated in just over 10 moves. It's a pity that this Iron General has no true teachings, and can't even match a magical power. Moreover, he is over 100 years old, and has long lost the hope of promotion. Of course, Zhao Chen now knows that what he lacks is actually the 5th grade position. Noticing the gaze of his master, Tao Zhao stepped forward and introduced enthusiastically, "Mr. Chen, this is my old friend Lu Qi." Then, he said to Lu Qi, "This young man is Zhao Chen, the blood sword young master who saved me on the way back to Dunhuang. He is a young hero." It was indeed Lu Qi. Zhao Chen nodded slightly, then glanced at Tao Zhao, and complained in his heart, "Can we not mention the nickname Blood Sword Young Master?" Lu Qi glanced at Zhao Chen, as well as Qi Fimeng, Moqiu, and Ning Meng beside him, frowned, and didn't like the other party's young master's style. But he was a man who clearly distinguished between gratitude and resentment. Since this so-called blood sword young master saved his friend, he was his benefactor, so he thanked him very solemnly. "Thank you, Master Chen, for saving Liao Tao's life. If you have any trouble in the future, just come to me." Lu Qi will definitely not refuse. "Senior Lu, you are too polite." Zhao Chen bowed and said politely. Seeing that the guests had arrived one after another, he suggested, "Let's take a seat first." Speaking of which, the layout of the Qinggyan Tower auction venue is also completely different from auction venues at other places. Zhenwei placed round tables in the hall for the invited guests to sit, and at the front of the hall, there was a not too high platform with various prohibitions and magic arrays set up on it. The whole layout was very similar to the scene of the wedding that Zhao Chen attended before he came to this world, which made him feel like he was back in time. Fortunately, the relatively simple clothes of the guests brought him back to reality. Zhao Chen shook his head slightly and chose a relatively remote table with Tao Zhao and sat down. Soon, a maid brought wine, food, tea and other food. Who did Zhenwei learn this from? I almost couldn't help but give a gift. Zhao Chen looked at the dishes on the table and then glanced at the crystal chandelier hanging on the dome that looked like the 16 Venus Libra sword and muttered to himself. Just as Feng Kang, Lu Qi and others were feasting without courtesy, the scene suddenly became quiet because 3 monks climbed onto the high platform in the front. A middle-aged monk in purple robes, a beautiful fairy in crimson palace clothes, elegant and fairy-like, and a young general with thick eyebrows and big eyes in official uniforms. The middle-aged monk introduced himself. "My fellow Taoists, I'm Zhenwei, the owner of Qinggyan Tower. This is Feng Wan, the Snow Eagle Sword, one of the 7 heroes of Emonan. This is Yun Yuan, the new Yehu captain of the Dunhuang Yiren camp. The 3 of us will host this auction today." Zhenwei is the owner of Qinggyan Tower and the spokesperson for the local forces in Dunhuang. He personally came to host the auction, which shows that he attaches great importance to this auction. Feng Wan, as one of the 7 heroes of Emonan, represents the martial arts forces that protect Dunhuang. Especially when the Li family is retreating across the board and the Feng family is about to send a monk with supernatural powers to Dunhuang. Her weight is only increasing. Although the new Lieutenant Yun Yuan has not yet established a foothold in the camp, his official position is there, and the fact that he can host the auction itself shows the attitude of the military. The 3 parties have joined together to hold such an auction that seems to be of high standards at this critical juncture. I'm afraid it also has the intention of boosting confidence and deterring villains. At least on the surface. Zhenwei did not exchange too many pleasantries and went straight to the point. He took out a net composed of flames of different colors, such as scarlet, golden, and purple, and introduced it in a very infectious voice. The first item is the 5 fire net of the Gangsha magic weapon, which is made of 5 kinds of spiritual fire, and has the power of the 5th turn. The reserve price is 6,500 strings of cash, or any 2 of the following: Red Blood Mysterious Gang, Purple Sun Fiery Gang, Dirty Blood and White Bone Evil, Zhengjin Evil Key, and Golden Dragon Evil, or 2 methods of practicing the innate magic of gold or killing. The same magic, when used by a cultivator of the 1st level of mana and a cultivator of the 9th level of mana, has a huge difference in power, so Zhenwei emphasized that this 5 fire net has the power of the 5th level. Generally speaking, the power of a crafted Gangsha magic weapon is at the 1st level, which is why the price of attack and defense magic weapons is generally much lower than that of auxiliary function magic weapons. To increase the power of magic weapon, the cultivator has to work hard to nourish it with his own mana, which is both time consuming and troublesome. except for gangsha cultivators like Iron General who have no hope of upgrading. Anyone who still has some ambition will not do this. Auctions always start with relatively low priced items. Although it is normal to put up a fine product first to warm up the crowd, Zhao Chen did not expect it to be so exciting at the beginning. As far as he knew, a 5th turn magical weapon like this could be the finale item in previous auctions. If a 5th turn gangsha magical weapon can't be the finale, then what would be the finale? A true magical item? But if there really is such a thing, shouldn't some news be released in advance? Zhao Chen thought doubtfully. In the Yiren camp, in the study of Yahoo Captain Yan Yuan, Yan Hongxia frowned as she looked at the many letters, telegrams, and even diaries that she had found. It's not that these things are useless. On the contrary, they form a complete chain of evidence, enough to prove that Yan Yuan has been receiving funding from Bikishan Lion Huan's He for many years. As an inconspicuous bastard, he was able to stand out and climb to the position of chief officer of the Yiren camp step by step. Moreover, the latest diary also shows that, in order to please the elder of the Yun family, he planned to completely abolish the Iron General Lu Qi in the competition and establish his prestige in the Yiren camp. But he was worried that he could not beat the other party, so he agreed to the deal with Zhao Wuan, the 4th leader of Bikishan Lion Huan's He, and agreed to hand over the city defense formation of Dunhuang to the people of Bikishan Lion Huan's He for a quarter of an hour, in exchange for the other party's efforts to consume Lu Qi's power. It looks logical, but it's too detailed. Will anyone really write all their plans in a diary? I'm stuck. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 183 Mutation. Ningzhou, located to the east of Ganzhou, is one of the 3 states in the western regions, forming a pincer attack with Ganzhou and Liangzhou. The Feng family is a prominent family in Ningzhou, and their ancestral home is on a snowy mountain near Xingqing, the state capital. At this time, in a side hall on the top of the snowy mountain, Fengqing, the only Dongsuan real person in the Feng family and the flying snow fairy, was playing with a small emerald green medicine bottle. She was wearing a white palace dress, her skin was as white as snow, her manners were graceful, and her eyes were as deep as the sea, making it difficult for people to see through her. But the sense of decline on her body was so strong that ordinary people could sense it. Fengqing looked at the black-clothed man who was bowing to her at the bottom of the stairs and snorted coldly. So, just by taking out this longevity magic pill that can extend one's life for 60 years, you want me to ignore what happened in Dunhuang, destroy the friendship between my Feng family and the Li family, and even bear the dirty reputation of being associated with evil spirits? Shen Wanshang, if you were not still a true disciple of the 10,000 Beasts sect, you would have been dead when you made this request just now. Upon hearing this, the man named Shen Wanshang knelt down and kowtowed again, and replied respectfully, "Of course I don't dare to expect the real person to ignore it, but I only hope that the real person can arrive a little later. In addition, we have arranged a scapegoat. At that time, all clues will point to the new lieutenant of Dunhuang, Yan Yuan. He wanted to use the 4 evil blades to consume Lu Qi and win the battle again, in order to please the elders in his family. For this reason, he was so crazy that he opened the Dunhuang city defense formation to the thieves of the North Kishan Lion Huan village, causing the change in King Gaian Tower to not be reported in the first time. It is reasonable that the real person was a little late." Fengqing chuckled when he heard the words, and the whole person was like a jade fairy walking into the mortal world, making people dazzled and confused. He said, "It is worthy of being the senior brother of evil god Song Wuyuru, and he is as meticulous as him. If I don't agree, will I follow the footsteps of Heavenly Sword and fall into the historical fog? Junior dare not." Shen Wanshang crouched on the ground, not daring to look directly at the face of the real person Dongsun. Especially the face of a real person like Fengqing, whose lifespan is about to end, and whose restraint on power has decreased a lot. "Don't dare. You let your junior brother go privately, and let him cause chaos in many places. What else can you not dare to do? Ha." Ever since your ancestor turned into a Dao evil, the people of his lineage have become more and more radical and crazy. Feng King sneered. Shen Wanzhang's body trembled unconsciously. Obviously, for a moment just now, his anger was ignited, but it was quickly suppressed. He took a deep breath and said again, after the matter is accomplished, I will present another 100 herbs Xingyuan pill to the real person, which can extend his life for another 60 years. Good. Feng King showed a satisfied smile, but still warned, don't hurt the lives of the people of Dunhuang, otherwise I will stop it immediately. This time, the Star God Sky method is openly planned by the Jiddu lineage of the All-Stars Association. They act differently from the four evil halls, Xinguang Temple and other organizations. They have always only targeted cultivators and rarely affected the people. Shen Wanzhang replied. So that's how it is. Haha, you guys are really good at scheming. In this way, even if the Taoist office investigates the background of the four evil blades afterwards, it will eventually point to the All-Stars Society, and no one would have thought that this was Song Wuyuru's arrangement. This time, the magical power of the beating Ashina family behind the beaky mountain lion Huanhe will probably be badly tricked by you. And the one from the All-Stars Society will probably be taken advantage of by you after the success of Star God, right? At this point, Feng King narrowed his eyes and asked with interest, I'm very curious, what exactly do you want to ask the Star God? I'm sorry that I can't tell you about this. Shen Wanzhang replied neither humbly nor arrogantly. Feng King stared at him for a long time, before nodding and saying, forget it, I'm tired today, you can leave first. Yes. After Shen Wanzhang left the side hall, a beautiful woman who looked to be in her 20s, elegant and pleasant, walked out from behind the screen. She bowed to Feng King who was sitting in the main seat and asked, why don't the elders just take this man down? This man is just a clone, and the Beikao Xingyuan pill is not on him. Feng King shook her head and said, are you really not going to rescue Dunhuang? Wana is also in Qingyan Tower. The woman's eyes seemed to be a little reluctant. If Wana dies there, the family will not be suspected of being in cahoots with the Zhangxing Society. Feng King's tone was flat, but the content of her words seemed extremely cold and ruthless. For her, the life of a junior was far less important than a pill that increased her lifespan. Yes, sir. The woman bit her lip and agreed, but she was thinking about how to remind him. Unfortunately, before she finished her thoughts, a cold flame fell on her. The woman didn't even have time to scream before she completely disappeared from this world. Do you think I can't see your little thoughts? If you are alive, the secret will be leaked sooner or later. Moreover, only if you, the head of the family, collude with outsiders and flee for fear of crime, I have a sufficient reason to be late, right? So, no matter what, you have to die. The Dushan Lei Farling can attract heavenly thunder and is a 4-turn gangsha magic weapon. Exchange for a Yunji Ui evil spirit, the Ziyang Yun Shendan is a precious pill that condenses the soul and forges the consciousness. Exchange for a technique that directly points to the realm of supernatural powers. Zuan Shubana, a 3rd level gangsha magic weapon. Exchange for a fire attributed magic weapon of the same level. In Qingyan Tower, as magic weapons, elixirs, exercises, and talismans were sold one by one, the people present became more and more excited, because every item auctioned this time was a fine product, and many of them were exactly what the people present needed. As the transaction progressed, the crystal chandelier on the dome, that imitated the 16 golden star Libra sword became brighter and brighter. At this time, at a round table at the front of the venue, breaking delusion eyes Gong Yun looked at the people around him with fiery expressions, and then looked at the 7th sister who was acting as the host on the high platform, and her delicate eyebrows wrinkled unconsciously. As the famous people in the Dunhuang area, Gong Yun and Lu Zhen of the 7 heroes of Emonan were naturally invited to Qingyan Tower. Only Yansen seemed to be busy with other things, and did not follow. No, something is wrong here. Although 7th sister is aloof, she is not so indifferent, and 4th brother has never looked at me since he bought the first item. Gong Yun showed an excitement similar to Lu Zhen on the surface, but she was actually looking around calmly. But the more she looked, the sank her heart. At least half of the people present bought the items they liked and became fanatical, while others were infected by the atmosphere and fell into a shopping spree, while others did not notice anything wrong at all. Only a small number of people noticed that something was wrong like me, but they did not dare to act rashly because everyone could feel that there was a terrible thing hanging over their heads. Tonight's extra update will be suspended for a day. I have been staying up late lately and I'm really exhausted. My efficiency is very low. Chapter 184 Rules and Loopholes. I can't go on like this, otherwise I will be contaminated by this inexplicable power sooner or later. Glancing at the crystal chandelier above her head, Gong Yun's side kept patrolling, looking for a strategy to defeat the enemy. Suddenly, her eyes lit up, and her gaze stopped on a girl who looked only 14 or 15 years old. The girl was sitting next to a boy at the moment, and the two were talking and laughing, with an intimate attitude. That boy is Zhao Chen, right? Well, although the girl next to him is disguised, she can't hide it from my eyes. The pride of the Zheng family, Zheng Qingyan, a magical cultivator who is only 18 years old. There are rumors that she has a good relationship with Zhao Chen, but I didn't expect it to be true. Now she's saved. With her life at stake, Gong Yun did not care about being abrupt. She stood up directly and walked towards Zhao Chen's table with a smile on her face. And with her move, not only did the host Qingyan Tower Master Zhen Wei, Snow Eagle Sword Feng Wan and Captain Yun Yuan on the stage, look at her expressionlessly, but even all the monks who had purchased the goods and were originally fanatical turned their heads and looked straight at her, as if they were scrutinizing her every move. The scene became extremely weird. But Gong Yun turned a blind eye to this and still ran towards Zhao Chen and Qi Meng's table with a face full of surprise. She knew very well that Qingyan Tower was now transforming into the strange domain. According to her experience, in the strange domain, generally speaking, as long as certain rules are followed, it is safe for a short period of time. And the rules in the strange domain are relatively loose in the early stages. So after she quickly approached Zhao Chen's table, she threw herself into Zhao Chen's arms without hesitation and sat on his lap. Mr. Chen, do you miss your sister? Gong Yun deliberately teased with a frivolous tone, and there was a hint of pleading in her eyes. Zhao Chen was stunned by her action at first, but then he understood, put his arms around her waist, and smiled. Of course I thought about it. As soon as these words came out, the scrutinizing eyes that were originally staring at Gong Yun were withdrawn, and the auction was in full swing again. However, after the self-destructive operation of the breaking delusion eye, some of the monks who were originally disturbed by the fanatical atmosphere finally realized that something was wrong, and their eyes looked around with horror. As for the people at Zhao Chen's table, Zhao Chen, Qi Meng, and Iron General Lu Qi had already noticed that something was wrong, but because the situation was unclear, they were still using their own methods to test it. Although Feng Kang, Moqiu, Ning Meng, Zhao Zan, and Tao Zhao were not affected for the time being because they had not purchased any items, they obviously did not understand the situation. At this moment, seeing that Gong, one of the 7 heroes of Monan, took the initiative to throw herself into Zhao Chen's arms, he deeply felt that his 3 views were challenged. After being stunned for several seconds, Feng Kang gave Zhao Chen a thumbs up and admired this junior brother very much. He felt that if he had the level of his junior brother, Lin Ruxiang would not have been a problem long ago. Ning Meng looked at Zhao Chen with contempt and thought with some regret, although it is very tempting, it is too scumbag. The one who couldn't believe it the most was Moqiu. She and Gong Yun were actually quite close, and she couldn't believe that the other party was such a bold person. Could it be that Sister Gong was possessed by something unclean? As for Tao Zhao, after seeing the scene of Qi Meng and Zheng Qingyan, 2 beautiful girls, fighting for the master's favor, he felt that this was the normal level of the master. At this time, Zhao Chen looked around and found that except for some gossipers who didn't understand the situation and were still looking at this side, the rest of the people were no longer paying attention to him, so he breathed a sigh of relief. He deliberately leaned into Gong Yun's ear and said in a slightly ambiguous way, Ms. Gong, it's safe for the time being, don't act anymore. This delay made me have to meditate to maintain my image. Gong Yun smiled and said, do the whole play. It seems that, as long as there is a reasonable reason, you can still leave your seat now. And I can't help myself, when I see my lover is obviously a reasonable reason. What does Miss Gong have to teach me? Zhao Chen asked with a refreshed spirit. The other party is known as the Eye of Breaking Illusion, and it is obviously good at breaking restrictions, illusions, and finding flaws. At least it is better than the Eye of Void brought by his 8th grade starboat guardian. I just didn't find a solution to the cannot leave the seat rule. Speaking of which, Zhao Chen thought it was just an auction with a slightly higher standard at first. After all, there were many monks participating, covering almost most of the cultivation forces in Dunhuang. But when various precious instruments, elixirs, and exercises were auctioned one after another, and they could find suitable buyers, he and Qi Meng realized that something was wrong. But at this time, they were all imprisoned in place by the power emitted by the overhead chandelier. Although it is not difficult for Zheng Qingyuan and Wang Daoyi to break this imprisonment with their magical powers, the former is fine, but the latter is likely to expose the fact that Zhao Chen and Wang Daoyi are connected. Moreover, Zhao Chen had already reported the situation here to Yan Hongxia through Xingcha, and the latter would go to the Daoguan office or the Li family for help. With his retreat guaranteed, he was not in a hurry to break the impasse, but wanted to find out what the owner of Zhenwei Tower was trying to do. The core here should be the sword-shaped chandelier above our heads. It is constantly absorbing the power of the transaction. Gong Yun, who was sitting on Zhao Chen's thigh, pointed at it and continued, I guess when the finale product appears, its power will reach its peak, and then some kind of ritual will be launched. Or, the ritual itself is the finale product, and we will become the bottom price required for the ritual to start. What should we do? Destroy it? Qi Meng interrupted, her tone a little aggressive. After all, this Qi Meng was pretended by Zheng Qingyuan, and with the latter's personality, she would definitely be unhappy to see another woman sitting on Zhao Chen. Gong Yun didn't care about the hidden hostility revealed by Qi Meng. She smiled and explained, the lamp is probably also responsible for maintaining the order of the auction. Any unreasonable behavior will probably be hit by it, and from the fatal sense of danger it can give me, it can be judged that it at least has magical powers. Fortunately, the punishment rules of this place are not perfect now, and there are many loopholes to exploit. At this point, she glanced at Qi Meng again, and said with a smile, of course, if a Zheng family prodigy takes action, it may not be necessary to find loopholes. It's worthy of being the breaking delusion eye. My disguise magic weapon can't hide it from you. However, there may be magical powers behind Qingyuan Tower. If I'm stopped by someone, I'm afraid you will all be in danger. Zheng Qingyuan said solemnly. This is also the reason why she and Zhao Chen have not acted rashly so far. Because they suspect that the 4 evil blades and the Qingyuan Tower Master may have been in cahoots with each other. And since the 4 evil blades were able to block Zheng Qingyuan's magical power calculations before, there must be a magical cultivator behind them. Chapter 185 Who is more authoritative? Once a magical cultivator entangles Zheng Qingyuan, no one can stop the crystal chandelier on the dome. As long as Zhao Chen and others make a slight move, they will probably be attacked. Zhao Chen himself still has a way to save his life, but the others are doomed. Even if he does not make a move, the people behind the scenes will not sit and wait for the magical powers to decide the winner. There is a high probability that they will drive those who are controlled after the transaction to attack him. At that time, if he and others fight back, it will be a disruption of order and be sanctioned by the crystal chandelier. If he does not fight back, he will probably be killed by those controlled people. The result is no different. So, based on the experience of dealing with weirdness, it is better to take advantage of the imperfect rules of the weird domain and use the conflict of rules to create loopholes. We will take advantage of the loopholes to either escape from here or solve the source of the weirdness. While analyzing, Gong Yun also peeked at the crystal chandelier above from time to time with the special eyes of her own, hoping to get more information. Unfortunately, the level of the chandelier seemed to be quite high, and she did not dare to keep peeking, so the harvest was very little. There are 3 rules that I can roughly figure out at the moment. First, you cannot leave your seat at will, especially if you try to leave Qingyuan Tower. Otherwise, it will be regarded as challenging the trading order and you will be sanctioned by Libera and law enforcers. Second, you cannot attack others at will, otherwise it will be regarded as challenging the trading order and will be punished by Libera and the law enforcers. Third, when purchasing any goods, it is assumed that you are exchanged for yourself. The value belongs to Libra, and the right to control yourself belongs to the law enforcer. Gong Yun said this, looking at the chandelier on the dome with a slightly complicated look. Zhao Chen's heart is actually more complicated than hers. After all, these rules are very similar to the Way of Xingcha, which is basically a magic modified version of the notarization contractability of 16 Venus Libra sword. If the 16 Venus Libra sword embodies authority and fairness, then this imitation from nowhere is playing the game of fraudulent sales, forced buying and selling, and trade bullying. This made Zhao Chen extremely envious, no, contemptuous, and wiped his saliva. The main reason is that my position is too low, and I may not be able to do this in the future. Thinking of his own Libra sword, Zhao Chen comforted himself, and suddenly realized something, and glanced at Tao Zhao and Moqiu on the other side. After a little thought, he transmitted his voice. I have a way, maybe it can make the rules of this strange domain conflict. He did not transmit the voice to Zheng Qingyuan alone, but included Gong Yun and Iron General Lu Qi. What method? Gong Yun turned her head and asked. Because she was sitting on Zhao Chen's lap, when she turned around, the two of them could almost hear each other breathing. Iron General Lu Qi spoke for the first time. If you have a way, tell me quickly. The longer you delay, the more dangerous it will be. I can't reveal the specific method, because it involves my privacy, but Master Tao Zhao needs to cooperate. Zhao Chen said this mainly to Lu Qi. Although Tao Zhao is his own man, he still needs to seek the opinions of his friends for such an adventurous matter, so as to avoid temporary conflicts. After all, Lu Qi is already old, and he is not afraid of death. It would be bad if he did something irrational for his friend. Lu Qi did not refuse directly, but asked, is it dangerous? There may be some danger, but I will try my best to ensure his safety. Zhao Chen told the truth. If it really doesn't work, he will directly sell Tao Zhao to Xingcha and redeem him later. Well, in this situation, it is right to take a little risk. Lu Qi nodded after a little hesitation. As an old man with perfect gangsha, he would not lack decisiveness. Just when several people had made up their minds and were discussing the time to take action, a monk who finally sensed the danger could not suppress the fear in his heart. Taking advantage of the fact that a transaction had just been completed, he suddenly flew up and rushed to the door of Qingyuan Tower. His action also brought about a chain reaction. 5 or 6 monks left their seats at the same time. Some planned to break out of the window, some also ran to the door, and some guessed that the danger came from the top of their heads and planned to destroy the crystal chandelier first. But the next moment, the sword-shaped chandelier emitted infinite light. Then, the golden flames ignited directly in the bodies of the monks who tried to jump out of the window and burned them to ashes in an instant. The 2 monks who ran to the door felt something heavy on them at the same time and fell to their knees with a plop. The 2 monks who had traded before each used the magic weapon they had just purchased to attack the 2 people and instantly took off their heads. As for the monk who attacked the crystal chandelier, he returned to his seat on his own. The fear in his eyes was gone, and he turned into fanaticism. However, Zhen Wei, Feng Wan, and Yan Yuan, who were presiding over the auction on the high platform in front, seemed not to notice this episode, and continued to introduce the next lot. The mermaid bag, storage equipment, contains a large house, and the validity period is not less than 300 years. The reserve price is any manual of cultivation that can be used to cultivate mid-grade magical powers. As soon as he finished speaking, Zhao Chen, Zheng Qingyuan, Gong Yun, and Lu Qi keenly noticed that someone was looking at the people at their table. Can they sense what valuable things we have? And then increase the temptation bit by bit. Zhao Chen was thoughtful and glanced at Gong Yun in front of him. He remembered that Gong Yun's sister Gong Fei seemed to have similar abilities and was also known as the goddess of fortune. Zhao Chen's thoughts raced, and he directly said, Master Tao, go buy this item. Since Zhao Chen and his friends had previously discussed the action plan by voice transmission, Tao Zhao, Feng Kang, and Moqiu had no idea what was going on. But Tao Zhao was stunned for a moment, then took the jade slip handed over by Zhao Chen and nodded. Okay. Zhao Chen, who owned the property, had no way of disobeying the order from his master. The secret teaching of the 3-point return to the origin can condense into the 6th grade magical power, the 3-point return to the origin finger. Tao Zhao raised his hand and offered a price. This secret book came from the Morning Dew Villa and was one of the 3 magical books, but Zhao Chen did not take out the full book and deleted the method of cultivation after achieving the magical realm. Get ready. Zhao Chen transmitted the voice to the others at the same table, and this time did not leave out Moqiu, Ningmeng, senior brother, and Uncle Zan. Zhao Zan had been through many battles, and after hearing this order, he immediately entered the fighting state. Although Feng Kang was still a little immature, he was very alert, and also secretly loaded a revolver with ammunition. Moqiu was a little confused, but as Zhao Chen's person, she naturally followed the order faithfully. Only Ningmeng was a little confused. But fortunately, her reaction arc was relatively long, and she didn't show anything unusual for a while. On the high platform, Zhen Wei simply identified the skills in the jade slip, and announced with a smile that the transaction was established. But the next moment, his smile froze on his face. Because Tao Zhao's control rights were not handed over to him, he subconsciously glanced at the sword-shaped chandelier under the dome, and was shocked to find that the scales on both ends of the hilt actually rose and fell violently. Zhao Chen's plan was actually very simple. He just wanted to see if Tao Zhao's ownership would be taken away, and whose notarized contract was more authoritative. And the result was obvious, that the fake was not as good as the original. Chapter 186 Confrontation. The moment the crystal chandelier on the dome lost its balance, Zhen Qingyan changed back to her original appearance, and at the same time, a white gauze covered her body, and a pink and white dress automatically took shape. This is the 3rd grade magical powered dragon silk fairy clothes. After temporarily losing the reliance of evil dragon immortal body, Zhen Qingyan naturally had to use defensive magical powers first to remain invincible. Then, she jumped up, and in her hand there was a long sword made of unknown grass and wood with 6 forks on the sword body. The long sword attracted lightning, and struck the crystal chandelier on the dome. But those lightnings disappeared out of thin air when approaching the chandelier, and only a little light white mist emerged, and the sound of the river could be faintly heard in it. 9 Bend Heavenly River Formation? No. It should be just a formation diagram. However, since it can block the attack of my 2nd grade magical power Yimu 7 swords, there must be a magical monk guarding the center of the formation. If you want to destroy the crystal chandelier, it seems that you have to break this formation first. Although Zhen Qingyan saw through the details of this formation at a glance, she was not sure that she could break the formation, or rather, she was not sure that she could break the formation in a short time. To do this, she needed the cooperation of a supernatural cultivator. She couldn't help but look at Zhao Chen, who immediately understood and said loudly, "I'm quite proficient in formations, and I'm willing to help the fairy break this formation." Okay. Zhen Qingyan nodded, and without any hesitation, she rolled herself and Zhao Chen up with foam and threw them into the white mist guarding the crystal chandelier. On the other side, as the function of the crystal chandelier stagnated, the sharp sword hanging over the heads of the cultivators also lost its deterrent effect, and many people wanted to escape from Qingyan Tower immediately. But seeing that the ceremony was about to succeed, Zhen Wei, the owner of the building, was not willing to give up at this time. As soon as he thought about it, all the cultivators who had traded with him before stood up, intercepted and slaughtered the cultivators who tried to resist. The table where Zhao Chen and Zhen Qingyan were sitting was naturally the focus of their attention. In addition to Zhen Wei's desire to take down Tao Zhao and find out what was special about him, it was also because there were 2 powerful monks at this table, and their strength was the strongest. There were already many guests who were still awake, and they also moved closer to their table. Feng Wan glanced at her 5th sister with a cold look, and without saying a word, she released several icy sword ki, directly hitting the vital points of Gong Yun. And Fire Cloud Gun Lu Zhen was also controlled. He raised his fire gun in his hand to the woman he had always loved, blocking all the retreat routes of the other party. A trace of sadness flashed in Gong Yun's eyes. She didn't expect that the 7 heroes of Emonan, who had just had an internal conflict, would once again fight with swords and guns. But she quickly abandoned this trace of melancholy, and then bursts of black wind appeared around her body, condensed into sword ki, and collided with Feng Wan's icy sword ki. This is a Yincha magic black wine 7 slashes. Then, Gong Yun used a tiger-headed whip, drew a semicircle around his body perfectly, and shot down all the flame bullets shot by Lu Zhen. 4th brother, 7th sister, let me show you the real me today. Gong Yun's eyes were full of stars, and then he waved his whip, and advanced instead of retreating, fighting with Lu Zhen and Feng Wan. When the 7 heroes of the South Desert were fighting internally, Iron General Lu Qi and the gun-casting master Tao Zhao also encountered trouble. They were surrounded by King Iron Tower Master Zhen Wei, Yahoo School Lieutenant Yan Yuan, Evil Flame Blade Xiao Wuan, and Saijing Elder Sun Yu. Among them, Zhen Wei and Xiao Wuan, the 4th leader of the North Kishan Lion Huan village, were both top masters with 9 turns of magic power and perfect gangsha. Although Yan Yuan and Sun Yu were slightly worse, they were also 4 turns, and 3 turns respectively, and they were not ordinary people. But facing such a desperate situation, Iron General Lu Qi laughed out loud. He raised the broadsword in his hand, that looked like a door panel, pointed at the 4 people and said, I'm here today, you can't hurt my friends. As he said that, he glanced at Yahoo School Lieutenant Yan Yuan and said contemptuously, I thought you dared to challenge me, and you had some weight, but who would have thought that you were so easily controlled? The Yun family is really getting worse with each generation. Unfortunately, Yan Yuan's eyes were dull and indifferent at this moment, as if he was a fake person, and he couldn't reply at all. Only Zhen Wei sighed with a clear expression and said, Iron General, if you get out of the way, I won't kill you. Kill me? Just you? What a big tone. Iron General snorted coldly, holding the broadsword in reverse, and inserting a section of the sword into the floor. The next moment, a set of armor with a little rust appeared out of thin air and was put on Lu Qi at a very fast speed, making his already tall body grow to nearly 4 meters in an instant. This move, which looks like a mecha, is a combination of the 3 life spells of multiplication, soil absorption into armor and dragon and tiger subduing. Although it cannot spell out supernatural powers, it is also extremely powerful. It is one of the unique skills that made Iron General Lu Qi famous. When Lu Qi just started to transform, Zhen Wei had already tried to stop him, but the opponent's transformation was too fast. His life spell Star Dividing Wings Zen was blocked by the already formed armor before it could destroy this combination spell. The Iron General cannot be defeated by one person. The 4 village leaders and I will work together to hold him back, and you and Elder Sun will wait for an opportunity to capture Tao Zhao. Zhen Wei directly instructed the captain Yan Yuan. Yan Yuan did not answer, but nodded with empty eyes. But their plan soon fell through, because just when Elder Sieging Sun Yu used his flexible body to bypass Lu Qi's huge body and was about to capture Tao Zhao, a giant flaming claw suddenly appeared, beating the unprepared Sun Yu to pieces, and a large piece of flesh on his back was torn off, revealing the white bones inside. The one who made the move was not someone else, but Yukon, the elder of the transmission of skills from the North Kishan Lion Huan village. He was previously left by Zhao Chen in Chenlu Beppu as a scapegoat, and not long ago, he finally retired after encountering a group of adventurers who discovered Beppu and was directly sold to Xingcha. Now he can naturally be summoned to fight like Wang Daoi, and his state is the same as Yan Yuan, Sun Yu, and Xiao Wuan in front of him, all with dull eyes, and can only follow orders and act, and he looks no different from them in essence. Before entering the formation diagram, Zhao Chen naturally left enough backups to protect his own people. Tao Zhao's side is Yukon, while Moqiu, senior brother Feng Kang and others are on the side of Sun Sword Ma Guangming. It's just that Ma Guangming can't show up in public now, so he not only disguised himself, but was also allowed to hide in the dark and use the magic of the Yin Demon Sect. Fortunately, the enemies who came to besiege Moqiu and senior brother Feng were not too strong. With the assistance of Sima Guangming, they were relatively safe. In the Jiuquashian formation, Zhao Chen, who sensed the situation outside, breathed a sigh of relief, and then used the purple light ring without any concealment, borrowing the power of Wang Daoi. At the same time, Zheng Qingyan also breathed a sigh of relief, and said with some relief, fortunately, this formation did not use the Hunio and Golden Bowl as a suppression object, otherwise it would be a big trouble. Update progress, 26/45. Chapter 187 Solution. The so-called Hunyuan Golden Bowl is a second-grade magical power held by the Jinsamyu family, one of the aristocratic families. It can eliminate all laws and seal the soul, and its power is extremely powerful. However, it is not really the Hunyuan Golden Bowl in myths and legends, but a magical power developed by the cultivators, based on the stories in myths and legends after the ancient Zhao Chen heaven change, and it just borrowed its name. It is similar to those who believe in gods and use the names of gods and Buddhas to cultivate themselves. The reason why Zenkingan was lucky is that the Nine-Bent Sky River formation is also a family magical power of the Mu family. Although it is rated as the third grade, if it is used in combination with the Hunyuan Golden Bowl, it can burst out with power that is not inferior to the first grade great magical power. At this time, there is only a formation diagram, but no matching magic tools, which means that the magical cultivator who controls this formation is not a direct descendant of the Mu family. I will hold back the magical monk who presides over this formation, and you wait for an opportunity to pass through the formation and destroy the crystal lamp first. Zenkingan looked at Zhao Chen, repeated the tactics they had discussed before, and then drove the Yimu Seven Swords into the sky, heading straight for the core of the formation. At this time, a river of bright starlight flowed, and a pale white mist immediately enveloped Zenkingan. This mist has the effect of dissolving mana, and the river water has the ability to dissolve realms. In the center of the formation, a graceful and elegant woman sat leisurely. She saw that the water of the Cheyenne River in her own formation diagram was completely blocked by a layer of clear light rising from Zenkingan's body, so she stretched out her hand and pointed, and a wisp of blood fell into the Jiukwa Cheyenne formation, and a huge wave rose in an instant. The clear light released by Zenkingan's dragon silk fairy clothes dissipated most of the time, and became shaky. Fortunately, her counterattack also began at this time. Zenkingan pointed her sword diagonally, and in the formation diagram, leaden clouds hung low in an instant, less than 100 feet away from the core of the formation. The dark pressure made people feel very depressed. Then, huge blue lightning bolts suddenly emerged from the low and dark leaden clouds without any warning, like flexible and terrifying green snakes, with the power of heaven and earth, hitting the woman in the core of the formation. But the graceful woman was neither happy nor sad. She just stretched out her hand and pointed, and a pale white mist rose up, constantly dissolving the power of the Yimu Divine Thunder, and trying to make it disintegrate on its own. However, the Yimu Divine Thunder attracted by the Yimu Seven Swords was also of the second grade, which could not be easily dispelled. Boom. 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 Thunderbolts hit the shield that suddenly appeared above the head of the graceful woman, splitting her so that she could no longer sit upright, and her body staggered. Zhao Chen, who had been waiting for an opportunity, saw this scene and immediately transformed into a divine wind. Taking advantage of the moment, when the woman could not be distracted, he stirred up some waves on the formation diagram of the Nine-Bend Heavenly River formation. Even the fog was swept by the wind and a hole was torn. The graceful woman hurriedly used her magical power to stabilize the formation diagram and block the gap, but how could Zenkingan give her this opportunity? So in an instant, Yimu Divine Thunder descended again, forcing the woman to mobilize most of the power of the formation to deal with it first. Otherwise, once she lost, and the formation was broken, it would be meaningless to repair the torn hole. What's more, she didn't think that a low-grade magical power had the ability to destroy the Libera in a short time. So, the divine wind transformed by Zhao Chen rushed out of the coverage of the formation diagram quite smoothly, and appeared in front of the crystal chandelier imitating the 16 gold star Libra sword. Due to the formation blocking the way, other people could not observe his movements at this time, so after a little thought, Zhao Chen followed his guess and directly placed his hands on the chandelier, whose balances were still rising and falling on both ends. As he expected, Xingcha immediately recognized his ownership of the chandelier, and gave a recycling price. Do I have the highest authority over the things of the star god, even if they are imitations? As long as you touch them, they can be recycled, just like those Starcha accessories. In other words, the source of power of this so-called imitation is likely to be Xingcha. The relationship between the star god and the great sun Starcha is really close. Zhao Chen narrowed his eyes, but did not think about it any further. After all, the timing was not right, and the top priority was to resolve the crisis as soon as possible to reduce casualties. For sale. As his thoughts turned, the crystal chandelier disappeared in an instant. At the same time, Snow Eagle Sword Feng Wan and Fire Cloud Gun Lu Zhen, who were fighting fiercely with Gong Yun who was riding the Black Wind, both stopped. Lu Zhen looked at the musket in his hand in doubt, and couldn't believe that he would actually attack the fifth sister. However, Feng Wan's breath quickly weakened, and she fell to the ground in less than 2 or 3 seconds, and it seemed that she was dying. Gong Yun caught her quickly, and while using a recovery spell, he hurriedly said, "Seventh sister, what's wrong with you?" Feng Wan stared at Gong Yun with a distracted look, and said weakly, "I didn't want to, so I was fatally injured. Be careful of the Feng family." Before she finished her words, her head tilted to the side, as if her life was about to come to an end. But at this moment, her body suddenly became transparent, and then completely dissipated into the air. Gong Yun, who had a sad look on his face, was stunned, and then he didn't know what he thought of, and the surprise in his eyes flashed away. Fifth sister. And what happened to seventh sister? Lu Zhen asked, somewhat at a loss. It's a long story. In short, you and the seventh sister were both tricked by others, and you are much luckier than the seventh sister. Gong Yun sighed, said a few simple words, and then stopped talking, and turned to look at other battlefields in Qinggyan Tower. As the controlled monks regained their clarity, everyone gradually stopped, and then focused their anger on Zhen Wei, the master of Qinggyan Tower who was firmly held by Iron General Lu Qi. Zhen Wei was also panicked at this time. After all, it was originally 3 people who besieged the Iron General, but in a blink of an eye, evil flame blade Xiao Wuan disappeared, and the school lieutenant Jian Yuan suddenly fell to the ground with serious injuries, and lost his ability to fight. As for sieging Elder Sun Yu, who was fighting against Chu and Gong Elder Yukun, he was also torn to pieces by the former with the killing giant claw. Seeing that he had lost control of those servants, Zhen Wei knew that the situation was over, so he prepared to use his own life-saving means to escape. But at this moment, a lightning bolt fell from the dome and struck Zhen Wei directly, instantly severely injuring his body and soul, and making him lose all his ability to move. Then, the formation diagram of the 9-bend heavenly river formation also shattered, revealing the figures of Zhao Chen and Zheng Qinggyan, but the graceful and elegant female monk had disappeared without a trace. After the owner of the crystal chandelier changed, the ownership of the person it controlled naturally fell into the hands of Zhao Chen. For most of the unlucky people who sold themselves inexplicably just for the transaction, Zhao Chen naturally gave up his control over them and returned them to freedom, but those who were not innocent or had bad records were all sold to the big Sun Star chariot by him. Seeing the 2 people appear, Tao Zhao suddenly felt something in his heart, as if he had heard some instructions, so he was the first to shout, "Thank you Bloodsword Man and Sakura Dragon Fairy for saving our lives." Many cultivators present worse than at first, and many of them realized why they were able to escape. So after a few seconds of silence, almost everyone bowed to Zhao Chen and Zheng Qinggyan and said sincerely, "Thank you, Bloodsword Master and Sakura Dragon Fairy for saving our lives." Chapter 188 Behind the Scenes. When the crystal chandelier was sold to Crossing Cha by Zhao Chen, in the center of the Dunhuang Defense Formation, Shen Wanzhong, a true disciple of the 10,000 Beasts sect dressed in black, suddenly sighed and said to the 3 men following behind him, "The Star God's Heaven ritual failed." The 3 men were all dressed as horse bandits. The leader had a full beard and relatively exquisite clothes, which showed his respectable status. The other 2 were one fat and one thin, and they were also majestic without anger and extraordinary. They were the other 3 village chiefs of the 4 evil blades, except for the 4th evil flame blade Xiao Wuan. "Master Shen, I see that the plan of the Star Club Zhen Lao's who is very thorough. How could it fail?" The beard, the boss of the 4 evil blades, Evil Dragon Blade Hang Xianchao, frowned and asked. He and his 2 junior brothers, Fang Yunshan, the evil tiger blade, and Zhang Xiang, the evil dog blade, were all privately trained disciples of Song Weiyuru, the evil god, and they were inextricably linked to Song Weiyuru in terms of fate. Sakura Dragon Fairy Zheng Qinggyan appeared in Dunhuang, in Qinggyan Tower. That's why the plan failed. The owner of the Zen Tower asked his son to challenge Zhao Chen before, and sent him an invitation, just to confirm whether Zheng Qinggyan was in Dunhuang. If Zhao Chen brought Zheng Qingyuan with him, he would change the time of the ceremony. But who would have thought that the daughter of the Zheng family would pretend to be Zhao Chen's maid and follow him? It's so shameless. Shen Wanzhang said bitterly. In that case, should we teach her a lesson? She has a first-class magical power. We are not her opponent, but we can still kill her lover. The thin evil dog blade Zhang Xiang suggested viciously. Third brother, don't be impulsive. Now that the Star God has failed, we can't snatch the opportunity to ask the Star God questions. Naturally, we have to leave Dunhuang as soon as possible, otherwise it will be too late. Evil Tiger Blade Fang Yunshan said a few words in a deep voice, then asked, Uncle, when will the transmission channel be built? There is still half a cup of tea. After Shen Wan replied, his eyes swept over the three evil blades in front of him, and finally stopped at Zhang Xiang, and he solemnly warned, you three are the key to Junior Brother Song's return from history, bringing the mythical beast Yang back to the current era, and revitalizing our lineage. You must not lose. So, don't do risky things for the time being. When Junior Brother Song comes back, it will be easy to deal with Zheng Qingyuan and Zhao Chen in any way you want. Hearing this, the three of them nodded in agreement. Evil Dragon Blade Hang Shai and Chao seemed to have remembered something at this time, and suddenly said, Uncle Master, do you want to inform Lord Ashina? The backer of Bikishan Lion Huanhe is the beating giant Ashina family. The apparent reason for the Dunhuang operation was to help Hang Shai and Chao complete the magical opportunity ceremony, so the Ashina family sent a magical monk to intercept the Feng family's support. Unfortunately, the Ashina family did not know from beginning to end that among the four evil blades, only evil flame blade Zhao Wuan was truly loyal to Ashina. No need, the Feng family's Danksu and Zenran will naturally help us finish it, and once Ashina Julu dies, our real purpose can be completely hidden. Shen Wanzhang said with a smile. Can Feng King be trusted? Will she sell us out directly? Hang Shai and Chao frowned and asked. Don't be disrespectful to the real person. Shen Wanzhang first scolded, and then while continuing to input mana into an altar, he simply explained, she won't. Otherwise, she will cooperate with us, and there will be no way to cover up the fact that she is late on purpose. What's more, if she doesn't help erase my traces and your relationship with Junior Brother Song, I won't give her the 100 herbs you and Zengdan. Uncle Master, are you really going to give such a precious elixir to Feng King? She didn't play any role in this matter. Evil Dog Knife Zhang Xiang couldn't help but say, you know, each elixir that increases lifespan is extremely precious. If Uncle Master didn't have the legacy of the entire 10,000 Beasts Gate, he would never have been able to get it. Give it, lest she be desperate and have evil ideas. But it can't be given easily. We have to let her help us eliminate all the hidden dangers. Shen Wanzhang snorted. As the four of them talked, the teleportation array was about to take shape. Fang Yunshan, the evil tiger blade with the most eyes among the three evil blades, just asked carefully, Master, where should we go next? To the southwest Yunzhou. It is rumored that there are new ruins there, and it will soon become a place where winds and clouds gather. And the more monks there are, the more opportunities we have. If you want to ask the right time and the right place, you don't necessarily have to go to the Star God Sky of the All-Stars meeting. As soon as Shen Wanzhang finished speaking, a dazzling white light lit up on the altar. It was obviously not the first time for the four of them to use this teleportation array, so they climbed onto the altar in tacit understanding and stood in a corner. A moment later, when the people from the Taoist office entered the center of the Dunhuang City Defense Array, they only saw stones broken into dozens of pieces. Over a sand dune somewhere east of Dunhuang, a man in a black robe was driving a blood-red longsword, condensing countless fire crows, and taking turns to attack the man in white who was protecting his whole body with solid ice not far away. Although the black-robed man was in the upper hand, he was a little uneasy for some reason. Suddenly, his face changed, and he immediately dispersed all his magical powers, and tried his best to control the sword light and escape. But the next moment, his sword light and soul froze rapidly, and in an instant he turned into a crystal clear ice sculpture, and even his soul and incarnation in other places were frozen together according to cause and effect. At the same time, a woman with skin as white as snow and a graceful manner appeared. The man in white took a look and quickly lowered his head, saying respectfully, "Meet the Supreme Elder." Dunhuang is in trouble. You follow me. The woman said lightly, then stretched out her hand and pulled the man into her own divine light. Elder, what should I do with this frozen magical power? The man couldn't help but ask. The woman chuckled and said calmly, no need to deal with it. No need to deal with it? Before the man in white could react to what this meant, he saw that the black-robed supernatural power that had become an ice sculpture was instantly turned into dust, both in terms of flesh and blood and soul. This is the power of Dongsun. The woman who killed the black-robed supernatural power was naturally Feng King, the only Dongsun real person in the Feng family. She brought her own supernatural power descendants, and the divine light flowed, and in an instant they descended outside the Qinggyan Tower in Dunhuang City. At this time, a middle-aged man in a red robe took the initiative to greet him and laughed. I didn't expect that Fairy Feng would come here in person. I'm honored to meet you. Feng King's eyes suddenly froze when she saw the red-robed man, but she immediately smiled and saluted. Greetings to His Royal Highness the King of Qin. Chapter 189 Harvest and Black Cat. The King of Qin was a vassal king of Daxia. More than 10 years ago, he encountered a disaster that almost wiped out the King of Qin's line. However, although the current King of Qin was selected from a side branch, he has the cultivation of Dharma appearance, the first level of Dongsun, so Feng King did not dare to underestimate him. After the greetings, the cold-looking fairy Fixu asked tentatively, why does His Royal Highness the King of Qin have the interest to travel to Dunhuang? It was the deputy envoy of the Yumandao official office who sent a message to the state capital, saying that an evil organization in Dunhuang held a ceremony and trapped many monks and celebrities in the Qinggyan Tower. At that time, my niece happened to be in the official office of the state capital. You know, my niece is a miserable person. She regards evil organizations such as the Four Evil Halls as enemies, and has to come here to deal with them in person. So, I, as your uncle, followed her. After the red-robed King Qin explained a few words with a smile, his eyes swept across the Qinggyan Tower which had become a ruin not far away, and continued, fortunately, the genius of the Zheng family is here, so it was just a false alarm. Is this ceremony related to the Four Evil Hall? Feng King asked carefully. No, it's the All-Stars Society. Zhen Wei, the owner of the Qinggyan Tower, is the person in charge of the All-Stars Society in the Ganzhou area. In addition, people from the Lionhuan village and Beaky Mountain were also involved, but they were probably used by Zhen Wei. Since it involves the star god, I can't deduce much information. King Qin smiled and continued, fortunately, Zhen Wei is still alive and has been handed over to the Taoist office. I think we can pry his mouth open. Feng King frowned slightly when she heard this, but soon returned to her cold attitude and said, on the way here, I took care of the Ashina family's magical power that was about to murder my family's magical cultivator. Maybe the beating giant bandits are behind this. Oh. It seems that the Ashina family is getting more and more excessive. It's a pity that is the territory of Brother BD. King Qin sighed and then invited, since the ceremony has been disrupted, the younger generation will do the small things like investigating the case. If you have time, Fairy, why not follow me to the Yu Cuisine shop for a chat? You are too polite, King Qin. Feng King suddenly smiled lightly, like a melting glacier and a blooming winter plum blossom. How dare I refuse the King Qin's invitation? On the other side, Zhao Chen had just walked out of Qinggyan Tower when Yan Hongxia, dressed in a redfish official uniform, arrived. She looked at Zhao Chen, as if no one was around, and saw that he was indeed not injured. She breathed a sigh of relief, and asked with concern, are you okay? Since the double cultivation last night, the relationship between the two has become closer. With Sakura Dragon Fairy here, I'm naturally fine. Zhao Chen responded with a smile. Sakura Dragon Fairy. Yan Hongxia then looked at the few people following Zhao Chen, and quickly locked onto the beautiful and heroic girl. She looks better than me. She is younger than me. Her family background is better than mine. Only her figure is much worse than mine. Wait, why am I thinking about all this? Yan Hongxia came back to her senses and immediately resumed her Taoist official posture. Greetings Qinggyan, Luki, Tao Zhao and others one by one. This development disappointed some people who were planning to watch the fun, especially senior brother Feng Kang, who thought that his junior brother was going to fall this time. Of course, many people also glanced at Gong Yun, the breaking delusion eye on the other side. Her previous feat of sitting directly on the legs of the blood-sword young master made many people open their mouths in shock. Although in retrospect, it was Miss Gong who went to the blood-sword young master and the Sakura dragon fairy to discuss a way out of the situation, which was an emergency. But many people felt that, if it was someone else, Miss Gong would definitely not do this. However, Gong Yun didn't care about the gossip about herself at this time. The starlight in her eyes flickered, looking at the place where King Qin and Feng King had just talked, and I don't know what she was thinking. Since Yan Hongxia still had official business to attend to, Zheng Qinggan seemed to have been invited by a certain important person, and Gong Yun was not very familiar with them. Zhao Chen only took Moqiu, Ningmeng, Feng Kang and others back to the restaurant. It was already night, and the few people who were a little tired physically and mentally quickly returned to their respective rooms. Zhao Chen did not rush to rest, but first took stock of the gains of this trip to Qinggan Tower. First of all, the Zihu Shengxian Miaoju has made great progress in the measurement of the acupoints related to the nose. Regarding this, he had not discovered it before, and it was only after returning to the restaurant and practicing routinely that he noticed the loosening of those acupoints. After a little thought, he realized that this was the feedback from the 8th grade position Starboat Guardian. Because Taozao is his commodity, and when the crystal chandelier robbed the ownership of Taozao, he made an excellent counterattack and even took the other party into his own pocket. This behavior undoubtedly meets the requirements of the role of Starboat Guardian or bodyguard, so it brought him a certain improvement. In other words, I need to do my best to protect the goods that belong to me and can be recognized by the Star Chariot. Zhao Chen nodded thoughtfully. He knew that there would definitely be other rules, but he could only confirm this for the time being. In addition to the improvement in my cultivation progress, the replica of the 16 gold star Libra sword itself and some of the cultivators it contracted also brought me a large number of star coins again, enriching my collection. Among them, the biggest gain was the magical female cultivator named Tang Mao. That is the one who fought with Zheng Qinggan for a long time in the Nine Bends Yellow River formation without losing the upper hand. Well, according to the introduction, this Tang Mao was originally a relative of the Jinsao Mu family and learned the 7-star Divine Mantra Sutra provided by the Mu family to people of other surnames. She cultivated a total of 4 magical powers, 1 of the 3rd grade magical powers, 1 of the 4th grade magical powers, and 2 of the 5th grade magical powers. The 3rd grade magical power Northern Dipper Death Curse can ruin fate and lead all things to death. The 4th grade magical power, Spirit God Body Protection Spell, is a magical power that combines defense and concealment. It can hide one's own breath and body shape, and it is also very effective in resisting attacks on the soul level. The 5th grade magical powers are Purple Courtyard Soaring Spell and White Tiger 7 Stars Knife. The former is a flying magical power, and the latter is a killing magical power. This person can cultivate a 3rd grade magical power, which is outstanding among the side branches of the aristocratic family. However, when she was traveling outside, looking for an opportunity to break through Dongsun, she was tricked by the owner of the Star Club, Zhen Lao, and was deceived by him with that imitation product, and became his property. But now it's a bargain for me. In addition to Wang Daoye, I finally have another trump card at the magical power level. Zhao Chen did not plan to redeem her for the time being, because she had seen him use his magical powers in the Nine Bent Sky River formation. In order to keep it secret, he could only bear with her for a while. At this moment, Zhao Chen suddenly heard some movement coming from the window. He quickly returned to reality and looked over. He saw a black cat with blood on its body standing on the windowsill, hitting the glass vigorously. Update progress, 27/45. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 190 Rescue. Dunhuang, Yukafang. After the flying snow fairy Feng King had a few drinks with the King of Qin and talked about their mutual understanding of Dangsuan cultivation, she returned to the courtyard where she stayed, using the excuse of not being able to hold her liquor. Of course, saying not being able to hold her liquor was not a big problem, because the wine that the King of Qin used to entertain her was the Behe wine of the Flower God sect, which contained certain changes in the laws of heaven and earth. If she drank a little more, Feng King estimated that she would be forced to enter a state of meditation and would not wake up for 10 days or half a month. If it were another occasion, she would not mind getting drunk like this. After all, the so-called Dangsuan is the stage of understanding the mysteries of the laws of Zuanshan. Unfortunately, after returning to the room that the King of Qin prepared for her, Feng King waved her hand to send away the younger generation standing by her side, and then quietly blocked the entire courtyard with divine light. After doing all this, she looked at the corner of the room and said coldly, "Come out. Although your hiding method is extremely advanced, ordinary Dangsuan masters may not be able to see through it, but I have already memorized your breath." As her voice fell, the void in the corner suddenly blurred, as if a chameleon was slowly fading, revealing a male figure. He was dressed in black, and it was Shen Wanshang, the true disciple of the 10,000 Beasts sect who had just teleported away with the 3 evil swords. "You are so bold that you dare to come to the mansion where King Qin is in charge." Feng King's expression was cold, her eyes flickering. "Do you think that it will be absolutely safe if you only come with your clone? King Qin will not use his spiritual sense to explore the fairy's residence at will, so it is very safe here. What's more, until this moment, I'm still a true disciple of the 10,000 Beasts sect who tracked Song Weiru here. My origins are clean, and it doesn't matter, even if I'm discovered." Shen Wanshang laughed, then changed the subject and said solemnly, "I'm here to give the fairy the Beikeo Xingyuan pill." "Oh, your plan has failed, right? You are still willing to give me the pill?" Feng King's starry eyes turned. "There is no such thing as an easy way to get up early without benefit. Do you have anything else to ask of me?" Shen Wanli nodded and said, "The fairy is smart. This failure is all because of the Sakura dragon fairy, so I hope the fairy can get rid of her and her lover." Before he finished speaking, Feng King interrupted him with a cold snort. "Just state your real request directly. Don't play tricks with me. Play this kind of trick of take the best and get the middle, take the middle and get the worst. Get rid of Zheng Qinggan, not to mention that she is carrying the evil dragon's immortal body and is extremely difficult to kill. Even if she is really killed, how can the Zheng family bear the wrath? It's impossible to think about it. Yes, I want to ask the fairy to let Zhenwei die accidentally. Although I have tampered with his memory, there is no guarantee that it will not be discovered by the Taoist office. In addition, Zhenwei arranged for his son Zhenfan to escape in advance. I also hope that the Feng family can do their best to find and kill him. Although he doesn't know the inside story, he has seen my clone, which is a hidden danger after all." Shen Wanshang paused here, looked at the mature and cold fairy Fixu, and said sincerely, "After all, protecting me is also protecting the fairy herself. Are you threatening me?" Feng King narrowed her eyes. "I dare not, but the fairy does not want to let others know that she made a deal with me and indirectly sacrificed Feng Wan, the Snow Eagle Sword, and her aunt Feng Yin, the Ice Soul Sword, right?" Shen Wanshang said in a low voice. Feng Wan's aunt Feng Yin was the current head of the Feng family in Ningzhou and had been killed by Feng King before. "How did you know?" Feng King's face had turned gloomy. She asked herself that she had done this secretly, and she had been using secret techniques to maintain the illusion that Feng Yin was still alive recently. With the fairy's character, since she decided to sacrifice the Snow Eagle Sword to eliminate the suspicion of the Feng family in this matter, those who are close to her will be cleaned up one by one sooner or later. As the head of the family, the Ice Soul Sword knows too much and must be the first to be cleaned up. And as long as you are willing, it is easy to notice that the Ice Soul Sword's habits of doing things have changed from the past. Shen Wanshang explained with a smile. "Good. You are very good." Feng King suddenly laughed. Her laughter really brightened up the whole room. "It was so beautiful. It seems I have to let Zhenwei have some accidents. In that case, I'm relieved." Shen Wanzhang smiled and nodded. Then he condensed a piece of paper in his hand, handed it to Fairy Fixu and said, Bakeo Xingyu and Pelizidin in this place. Please accept it, Fairy. Fengking took the note, glanced at it, and burned it with a cold flame. Then she suddenly sighed, and said with a slightly regretful tone, in fact, one girl is a junior I think very much, but it's a pity that she is too principled, otherwise she wouldn't have. Just when she said this, her expression suddenly moved, and then she turned her head abruptly, and looked at a big tree outside the yard. Who are you? Exclamation mark. She gathered her sound into a beam, trying her best to suppress the fluctuations of power, and attacked the big tree with her sonic magic, but this also caused the magic to lose almost all its power. If it were not for the blessing of the Dangshan status, the power it carried would not even be as good as the general Gangsha spell. After all, this is Yukifang, with Kinkin by her side, and it would be better not to expose her secret meeting with Shen Wanzhang. Even so, Fengking's attack was also at the Dangshan level, and ordinary magic could not take it unscathed. And Shen Wanzhang also quickly left the courtyard and went to the location of the big tree as soon as Fengking took action. But the strange thing is that there was no one or other living thing there, only a pile of clothing debris. Breaking delusion eyes, Gong Yun turned into a black cat and ran quickly under the cover of the night. Her spirit became more and more listless, and her consciousness began to become blurred. Obviously, the Dangshan attack caused her to suffer severe internal injuries. But being able to escape from the hands of Dangshan was already quite remarkable in itself. In comparison, what was the injury? Before, after hearing the last words of her seventh sister, Gong Yun had doubts about the supreme elder of the Feng family, so she took advantage of the night and used her own eyes that break delusion to spy on him from afar, hoping to find some clues. What she didn't expect was that she had such a big harvest that night. Although she didn't know who the man who met Fengking at night was, she knew there must be something wrong just by looking at their sneaky appearance. Unfortunately, Gong Yun still underestimated the power of Dangshan. She was noticed by the other party accidentally. If it weren't for the life-saving things given by the master, I'm afraid that her internal organs would have been frozen by the sound wave. Feeling that her consciousness was getting more and more blurred, Gong Yun knew that she had to find a place to heal as soon as possible. And she thought of Zhao Chen after a little thought. In the whole city of Dunhuang, perhaps only this young man who she could not see through, and who was on good terms with the Sakura Dragon Fairy, had the ability to save herself from a Dangshan. So she gathered her remaining strength and jumped into the backyard of the restaurant and walked a few steps to the windowsill, stretched out her cat claws and patted the window. Then, she lost all consciousness. When she woke up again, she suddenly found herself being twisted by someone's hands and heard a malicious voice in her ears. Let me see. Well, it's still a female cat. Meow. The black female cat's mind went blank, and then she started scratching, as if she had been insulted, but was easily suppressed by the young man who twisted her. Chapter 191 Voice of the Heart. Zhao Chen looked at the struggling black cat in his hand, and a strange look appeared on his face. In fact, he had some guesses about the identity of the kitten. After all, when the 7 heroes were fighting, Malaoa had said that Gong Yun, the Eye of Breaking Delusion, turned into a black cat to secretly contact Feng Wan, the 7 heroes. So, when he saw the kitten tapping his window very cleverly, and with a high level of injuries on his body, he instantly had an association. What he said just now, I checked that she is a female cat, was just to test her reaction, although he did check it. And the result of the test was just as he expected. At least it was confirmed that the kitten was a thing with human thinking. However, Zhao Chen did not expose the other party directly, but planned to take it with him to observe for a while. The kitten's injuries were very serious, and she might not be able to turn back into human form in a short time. Just as Gong Yun was very interested in Zhao Chen, who she could not see through, Zhao Chen also had some ideas about the origin of her Eye of Breaking Delusion. On the other side, after waving her claws a few times, Gong Yun's accumulated strength was exhausted again, and she had to stop. At the same time, she suddenly felt that her actions just now were a bit stupid. After all, as a cat, she was naked, so why should she worry about being checked? Fortunately, as a wildcat, it is normal to show a certain degree of aggression when being caught, and it will not arouse suspicion. Just when Gong Yun was somewhat thankful to reflect on herself, she heard the boy who was holding her muttering to himself again, "I heard that female cats also need to be sterilized, otherwise they will develop some diseases." Meow. Gong Yun was stunned for a moment, wondering what kind of devil she had found to provide shelter. She deeply felt that she had to consider whether she should find another family to hide. Fortunately, at this time, Zhao Chen changed the subject and continued to talk to himself. "It's not necessary for the time being. Let's talk about it when you grow up." Gong Yun was relieved and huddled up honestly, and then let the other party press her into the water to wash the blood and filth on her hair. Those were not actually Gong Yun's own dirty blood, but she deliberately rubbed them on to conceal her own aura and mislead possible pursuers. As for the calculation, she was not too worried because of the existence of her own eyes that break delusion. Even dunks and monks would find it difficult to calculate her origins. The only flaw now was the frost and snow breath in her body, which was too high in level. It would probably take a long time to completely eliminate it, and during this period of time, she could not get too close to the flying snow fairy, otherwise it would be easily detected. Well, although my eye of breaking delusion is well known, it has never shown too strong power, and its function has been divided into two identities, Gong Yun and Gong Fei, so Fengking should not suspect me for a while. She must have been investigating among the supernatural cultivators at first. But if there is no clue, and Gong Yun has not appeared in front of people for a long time after tonight, it is still very likely to be noticed. We have to find a way to show up in the near future. As her thoughts turned quickly, Gong Yun found that she had been cleaned, and a small metal plate was put on her neck at some point. Generally speaking, don't cats have bells? Gong Yun scratched the plate with her claws and found nothing unusual. What she didn't notice was that Zhao Chen's mouth suddenly curled up at this time, and he tried his best to calm it down. This small plate is actually a subplate in the Gangsha magic weapon Tongsin subplate, which can transmit the wearer's superficial thoughts to the holder of the mother plate. In essence, it is the observation of the heart and numbers method in the 12 methods of heart light, which can peek into the thoughts of others. It came from the treasure house of Chen Lu Villa, and was one of the magic weapons that Zhang Yunlu left for Zhao Chen. Gong Yun's mind is quite active. In addition, since she couldn't see through the details of the concentric mother and child card, does it mean that she can't use the delusion breaking eye in the form of a cat? Or is it because she is seriously injured now that she can't use it? Zhao Chen stroked the black cat's back thoughtfully and felt that it felt pretty good. He didn't think that there was anything wrong with his behavior when he knew that the black cat was Gong Yun. After all, in Qinggan Tower, Gong Yun didn't consider his feelings when she sat directly on his lap. Now it can only be regarded as a fair exchange. I think Miss Gong wouldn't mind. In fact, Gong Yun didn't mind much. She even hummed comfortably in the voice of Zhao Chen received through the concentric mother and child plate. Just as Zhao Chen was stroking the cat and continuing to sort out today's harvest, the window opened without wind, and then a huge bubble instantly swallowed the entire room. Obviously, Zheng Qinggan is back. As soon as she appeared, she glanced at the black cat with an iron plate, and then sat next to Zhao Chen, as if nothing had happened, and said directly, "The so-called young master who was rewarded to you after dealing with the Z family last time is indeed from the Qin Palace, and the Qin Wang himself has also come to Danhuang this time." The so-called young master? Zhao Chen looked at Zheng Qinggan in confusion. It's the youngest daughter of the previous king of Qin, Princess of Weiming Hangaiu. After the incident more than 10 years ago, she has been wearing men's clothes, calling herself Young Master Zhu Xiang, and looking for trouble with the four evil hall everywhere. Zheng Qinggan said lightly, "By the way, do you want to submit the information about the four evil hall in your hand to that young master now?" The four evil hall information she mentioned is the information that Alan took the initiative to confess. Zhao Chen has already told Yan Hongxia part of it, so that she can use it to make merit, and the other part is mainly the superior Alan knows. He plans to contact him in person, and then report it. Otherwise, there is no way to explain the source of the information. Therefore, Zhao Chen shook his head, after thinking for a while. Let's wait, maybe we can catch a bigger fish. After a pause, he glanced at the black cat and stopped the whole topic. Instead, he asked, has the origin of the owner of Zen Tower been confirmed? What did he want to do by setting up the King Iron Tower? The preliminary investigation results are out. In fact, I don't need to tell you. Your sister Hanksha will take the initiative to tell you tomorrow. Zen King Iron's expression did not change, but her tone sounded sour. Here it comes again. But this time there are outsiders. With an outsider here, maybe the feedback will be better? Zhao Chen was thoughtful, but on the surface he pretended to cough guiltily and cooperated with Zen King Iron's performance. At the same time, he was not surprised to hear Gong Yun's inner voice. Is the Zeng family's genius so tolerant in private? Then this Zhao Chen is still philandering. Bar. Chapter 192 Star God Transformation Day. Master Zen is from the All-Stars Society, and the reason he set up the trap in King Iron Tower was to hold the Star God Gaining the Heavens ceremony. Zen King Iron knew that Zhao Chen didn't know what Star God Gaining the Heavens meant, so after a pause she continued to explain. Star God Gaining the Heavens is a ritual that directly seeks answers to questions from the Star God. Every time it is used, a huge price must be paid. Even a Dangshan cultivator may suffer a great decline in luck or even lose all his cultivation and become immortal. And in order to bypass this price, many people with evil intentions have developed all kinds of evil methods to deceive the Star God. For example, slaughtering all living creatures on the ground and inviting evil spirits through sacrifice to replace one's own destiny and cultivation. Another example is the owner of King Iron Tower this time, who intends to enslave many cultivators and let them "voluntarily donate their destiny and cultivation to add bricks and tiles to his ceremony so that's it. The so-called Star God Sky is just a paid quiz system. Zhao Chen suddenly understood, but thinking of the intricate relationship between Star God and Star Chariot, he couldn't help asking, didn't they say that Star God could no longer respond to believers before the Jiashan heaven change in ancient times? Indeed, he can't respond. But the supreme existence of Star God, whether he has really fallen or not, his power and traces will not be erased, and communication can still be carried out through rituals. It's just that it's rather rigid, so it can be cheated by those sneaky guys. Having said that, Zen King Iron hesitated for a moment, and then said vaguely, in addition, about the Star God, I recently heard another legend. It is said that the sun and moon in our world had already fallen during the Jiashan heaven change. The reason why we can still see normal sunlight and moonlight now is because the Star God turned into the sun and guarded Zuanshan's daytime. Well, it can't be seen in Daksha. But in fact, overseas, in the west, sometimes a black sun rises during the day, and from time to time a blood moon appears in the night. Whenever the black sun and blood moon appear, it is also the time when all kinds of evil and weirdness are most rampant. Zhao Chen knew why Zen King Iron spoke vaguely, because it was most likely that Qi Fimeng suddenly thought of something during the journey. Zhao Chen was also accustomed to her habit of knowing something from time to time. Black sun, blood moon, Star God turning into sun. Although I don't know whether it is true or not, I finally know a little more about the Star God, and this puzzle will be pieced together sooner or later. As his thoughts turned, Zhao Chen asked curiously, since there is a Star God turning into sun, then who turned into the silver moon? That's not clear, but I think it's an existence equal to the Star God. Zen King Iron shook her head slightly, then glanced in the direction of the next room, and said, it is said that the ancestor of the Western vampire clan is known as the eldest daughter of Silver Moon. Perhaps there will be relevant records in this ancient warlock family. Also, one of the evil organizations is the Moon Worship Cult, which worships the blood moon which is hostile to the Silver Moon, and their members are very keen on hunting vampires. Although the teachings of these cultists are radical and extreme, they can sometimes reflect a certain truth. Zhao Chen also thought of Ningmeng next door at this time. This little girl has vampire blood, and it seems to be quite pure. However, the girl's current strength is too low. Although the jade bow true secret he provided can allow her to practice, the efficiency is still not very high, so Zhao Chen did not take it to heart, and soon put it behind his mind. The black cat Gong Yun, who had been listening with his ears perked up, was full of astonishment at this time, thinking, so you two usually talk about such high-end topics? The Zheng family fairy is fine, but this Zhao Chen is only a 4-orifice cultivation, but he is thinking about the hearts of big figures such as Star God and the ancestor of vampires. I was just thinking about where I should hide, if you two get intimate. Listening to the voice of the little cat lying on his thigh, Zhao Chen couldn't help but smile, thinking that she was right. With his current little strength, thinking about those things is still vain. It is better to focus on the present. Zhao Chen couldn't help stroking the kitten a few more times before continuing. We have almost finished what we need to do in Dunhuang. After the caravan's wine and drinks are sold out, and we purchase some local specialties, we should return. With the experience of this trip, I don't need to come with you in person next time. Yes. Now everyone knows that the Golden Art Caravan is your Bloodsword Young Master's property. If you come with me in person on this trip, I'm afraid that no bandits will dare to rob your caravan in the next few years. Zheng Qinggan's lips curled up slightly, teased Zhao Chen a few words, and then asked, what are your plans for the next step? The next step? After I consolidate my cultivation, I will go to Shanghai, the state capital. In view of the presence of the black cat Gongyun, Zhao Chen didn't say too much, but Zheng Qinggan still understood what he meant. This was to go to the Li family, to seek the subsequent skills of the 5 emperors paying homage to the truth magical power. By the way, find out the specific reason why Heavenly Sword went to the red gold area in the first place. Although most people have forgotten the original Dongsuan master of the Li family after the history changed, this does not include cultivators who have cultivated the 3rd grade supernatural powers. Zhao Chen has already chosen the entry point, but he still needs to wait for the right time. In the Yukifang, Fengking, the flying snow fairy who received the message from Shen Wanshang, frowned her long and straight eyebrows, and said silently to herself, lost. Still can't figure out the details? At present, in Dunhuang, the cultivators who can have this strength are probably only Qingqin, Zheng Qinggan, and the few strong men and personal guards who protect the little princess. It can't be Zheng Qinggan. She was in Yukifang just now and just left. And if the king of Qin wanted to spy on me, there was no need to go through so much trouble. So, one of the little princess's guards or the yellow turban warriors is the most suspicious. Fengking narrowed her eyes, and the murderous intent flowed uncontrollably, but she quickly restrained it. She took a deep breath and thought, the control of desire has been much worse recently. Is it the sequelae of the longevity pill? Fortunately, it's not particularly serious, and is still within the tolerable range. Well, there is no need to rush to take the Beikao Xingguan pill that you are about to get. It is better to find some masters of alchemy to take a look first. In a small town somewhere in Shuzhou, Hong Xianshao, the evil dragon sword among the 3 evil swords, looked at Shen Wanshang, who opened his eyes and woke up from meditation and couldn't help but ask distressedly, Uncle Master, did you really give the Beikao Xingguan pill to Fairy Fixu? Give it to me. Shen Wanshang smiled. Don't feel sorry. Maybe in a few years, we can have another Dongsuan helper. Uncle Master, what do you mean? Evil Tiger Blade Fang Yunshan's eyes lit up when he heard it. The Dongsuan of a small family doesn't know the benefits. The longevity pills of my Wan Xiaomen are not that easy to get. Update progress, 28/45. Chapter 193 Bei Luo Shimen and Zhao Yin. The conspiracy is repeated. The owner of Qinggan Tower trapped a group of knights. The wise and brave, the Bloodsword Man saved the heroes from all directions. The Yinglang Fairy joined hands with the Bloodsword Man to destroy the conspiracy of the Star Society. The Iron General is still as sharp as ever, fighting against the 3 great powers alone. The Breaking Delusion Eye is righteous and kills his relatives, severing the Sworn Brotherhood. The Red Cloud Sword went thousands of miles to get help, just for him. A detailed list of the confidants of the Bloodsword Man Zhao Chen, Gongyun. Why is the feathered robe with gold and silver infecting the peach and plum blossoms in the world? On why the female knight loves Zhao Chen alone. The next morning, after morning exercise, Zhao Chen, who had breakfast with everyone, looked at the eye-catching and exaggerated headlines on the tabloids, and his mouth twitched a few times. After a night of fermentation, what happened in Qinggan Tower last night was finally reported. As one of the protagonists who solved the incident, Zhao Chen, who is naturally gossipy, naturally became a topic of discussion. Especially the action of Gong Yun sitting on him last night, which pushed him to the cusp of the storm. You should know that in Dunhuang, the reputation of the 7 heroes of the southern desert is much greater than that of Zheng Qingyuan and Yan Hongxue. Gong Yun and Feng Wan are the goddesses admired by many people. Therefore, the reports of major newspapers have completely deviated from the Qingyuan Tower incident itself, and focus more on Zhao Chen's gossip. Although he knew that this might be the result of deliberate guidance by the government, Zhao Chen was still deeply depressed. He stretched out his hand and stroked the little black cat that Gong Yun had turned into a few times, and then he felt a little better. Junior brother, you are really famous this time. But I guess there are more people who beat you. Feng Kang put down the newspaper and gloated. In Dunhuang and Human, there are definitely many people who admire Gong Yun and Yan Hongxue. On the contrary, Zheng Qingyuan, because of her high status and strength, has a huge generation gap with ordinary cultivators, and there are very few suitors. Zhao Chen glanced at him and ignored him, but secretly decided to take good care of him next time he practiced, so that he would know what disaster comes from the mouth means. Master, why have you and I become his people? Ning Meng pointed at the content of a tabloid and asked with a puffed mouth. There is nothing we can do about it. The innocent will be innocent. Moqiu sighed and comforted his disciple. Can you expect to be clean if you are close to the Divat? What's more, I'm indeed his person in a sense. The little black cat Gong Yun also jumped onto the table at this time, pretending to be naughty, but actually reading the content of the newspaper seriously. She didn't care much about her own gossip, but only looked for news about Qingyuan Tower. Soon, her eyes focused and saw the news in the corner of the newspaper that Zhen Wei could not bear the torture and took the opportunity to commit suicide. That woman is really quick to act. That's right, as a Dongsuan cultivator, if she wants to do something, I'm afraid that only King Qin and the whole Dunhuang can see it. But even if King Qin notices it, I'm afraid he won't tear his face with a person of the same level because of such a small matter. What's more, the King of Qin has only been promoted to Dongsuan for more than 10 years. Compared with Feng King, an old monster who is nearly 200 years old, he is still very immature. He may not be able to see anything. When Gong Yun fell into deep thought, the little girl Ning Meng was also staring at her in a daze. Although Zhao Chen had introduced this newly adopted member to everyone early this morning, Ning Meng found that this kitten seemed to be very spiritual. Although it could not compare with Zhao Chen, the smell it exuded was also very fragrant. Resisting her saliva, Ning Meng retracted her gaze and asked, Master Chen, does it have a name? Name? How about Black Charcoal? Although it fits her appearance, it doesn't sound like the name of a female cat. Zhao Chen glanced at Gong Yun, who was enjoying his touch, and found that she seemed to be looking forward to the new name in her heart. Since I, the master of the Star Chariot, named it, and she has a pair of special eyes, then, let's call it Beluoshiman. A few days passed in a flash, and the impact of the Qingyuan Tower incident gradually dissipated, replaced by the news of the newly appeared oasis ruins. But soon, the monks who first discovered the oasis spread the news that when they entered there, most of the valuable items in the ruins had been looted by the people of Beaky Mountain Lion Huan village, and only some classics and a small number of magic tools had not been moved away in time. As soon as the news came out, the Dunhuang monks were immediately excited. After all, the government and the Feng family issued announcements in the past few days, and everyone had learned that the 4 evil blades were also involved behind the Qingyuan Tower incident. Now they are robbing everyone's opportunity, which is really intolerable. Under such circumstances, the supernatural power of the Feng family who came to Dunhuang to take charge of the situation formed a crusade team. While sweeping the bandit strongholds near Dunhuang, it also strengthened the authority of the Feng family in Dunhuang, and weakened the influence of the original 7 heroes of the South Desert. However, these have nothing to do with Zhao Chen. At this time, he was standing on the deck of the freighter, looking at the increasingly smaller Dunhuang city wall, thinking of the various things that had happened during this period, and he couldn't help but take out the jade flute that he had obtained from the Z family before and played it. He not only could play the piano after obtaining the original owner's music ability, but also became an expert in flute art. Gradually, Zhao Chen unconsciously entered a state of mystery, and the spiritual energy of the five immortals also began to circulate on its own, and merged into the sound of the flute. At the same time, on the Dunhuang city wall, a girl in men's clothing was originally watching the scenery of the desert and broadening her mind, but when the melodious flute sound reached her ears, she showed a look of surprise on her face. Because just the true meaning contained in the sound of the flute made a certain power lingering in her body change a little. When she wanted to ask who played the song, she suddenly found that the King of Qin had come nearby at some point, so she restrained her thoughts, coughed violently a few times and asked, "Uncle, if you don't go to find the flying snow fairy, how can you have time to see me, your niece?" Haha, Fairy Feng and I are just playing around and building relationships. Han Gaiu, you can't complain to your aunt. The King of Qin laughed and asked with concern, "Are you healthy? This desert is not a good place to keep healthy. Han Gaiu, it's better for you to return to the central plains as soon as possible. I'm sorry to trouble you, uncle, but please forgive Han Gaiu's willfulness. The next step is to go to Shuzhang, because someone found the traces of the four evil hall there." Ming Han Gaiu, a girl in men's clothing, said stubbornly. Looking at the pale face of the girl, King Qin sighed helplessly and said, "Oh, forget it, it's up to you. Thank you for your understanding, uncle." The two exchanged a few more pleasantries before Ming Han Gaiu watched her uncle leave. She thought about it for a long time, but in the end she didn't ask anyone to find out who played the flute just now. Some people are willing to indulge themselves in doing wrong things, but they will never allow their injuries to recover. If you rashly go to look for someone, you will only cut off your own hope. Chapter 194 Assassination. On the ship, Zhao Chen, who had just put down the jade flute in his hand, after playing an impromptu song, found that his companions were all looking at him. Their expressions were different, but their eyes revealed a kind and respectful look. Even the little black cat named Superhuman by him jumped into his arms and rubbed him intimately. Zhao Chen couldn't help but be speechless, wondering if this delusion-breaking Igongzia had forgotten that she was actually a person. However, he soon knew the reason from the other party's voice: the spiritual key of the five immortals, or the spiritual key of the five immortals who have obtained the original meaning of the beginning. This true key embodies the beauty of the Great Way, or the original appearance of this world. It has a miraculous effect on eliminating alien forces and restoring the body to perfection. And music, painting, calligraphy and other means are the best carriers of this kind of beauty. It is said that in ancient times, there were Taoists who listened to the ancestor of Xianyang City playing the piano. They were moved by this beauty and finally found their humanity. Although the current strength of this Mr. Chen cannot reach that level, I have only been affected by a little bit of the power of the Dongsuan fruit position. If I can listen to him playing the jade flute for a long time, even if it is not a specific score, it can speed up my recovery from injuries. After knowing Gong Yun's thoughts with the help of the mother card, Zhao Chen nodded thoughtfully and thought, so that's it. The best carrier of the special spiritual key of the five immortals is artistic ability. Then why did I learn swordsmanship before? Otherwise, I should have a nickname like Mr. Yuxio or Lord of the Divine Flute. Isn't this much better than Lord of the Blood Sword or Jade-Faced Shura? The Li family has misled me. Of course, Zhao Chen didn't really regret learning swordsmanship. After all, music skills were quite average in the key and orifice refining stages. They were okay as auxiliary skills, but if he was fighting with others, he had to rely on weapons such as fire guns and swords. Besides the falling soul purple flute he got in Black Wind Castle, he didn't have any other music skills. Putting the kitten down casually, Zhao Chen returned to his cabin and the amazed or yearning eyes of Feng Kang, Moqiu and others picked up a book and studied it carefully. This book is called Journey to the West, which was written by a Daksha monk who traveled to the western countries thousands of years ago. The content in it is mostly about local customs, but for some reason it is written in Dao characters. This is why Tao Zhao, who was collecting similar books everywhere and wanted to earn star coins, bought it and presented it to Zhao Chen. Speaking of Tao Zhao, the master of gunsmithing, he did not return to Human with the ship, but became the person in charge of the Master of Xingcha in Dunhuang, and was commissioned by Zhao Chen to help him forge several fire guns that matched his own true key characteristics. Back to the point, with Zhao Chen's current little Taoism, he naturally could not interpret the content of the Dao Wen, but he could sell it to Xingcha first, and then directly buy the translation. No wonder it was written in the Tao script. This travelogue actually records a black sun spectacle encountered by this cultivator named Hui Yuanzi, and this fellow also carefully observed the details of the black sun, and from it, he comprehended a technique called the secret of the 5 element of the Black Sunday. Not surprisingly, he went crazy on the spot. But before he went completely crazy, he still hid the technique he had comprehended and recorded the clues to it in the Tao script, which became this journey to the west. It's true that mental patients have broad ideas. If you wanted to spread the technique, why would you hide it? And if he didn't want his skills to harm the world, why did he leave clues in the travel notes? Maybe he was also very conflicted at the time. Zhao Chen closed the travel notes and sighed in his heart. As for the skills and treasures left by Hui Yuanzi, Zhao Chen didn't even think about digging for them. First, that thing is far away in the west, and he can't go there in a short time. Second, God knows if there is a trap waiting for him. And the Black Sun 5 element secret is obviously evil, and has no appeal to him. Next, Zhao Chen simply practiced the Black Emperor blood flow variation in the Purple Household Immortal secret, to condense the loosened acupoints of the nasal orifice. But after a day, there was little progress. Although this was already quite amazing in the eyes of others, Zhao Chen, who had experienced the blessing of the talisman position and the pleasure of dual cultivation, was very disgusted. Unfortunately, Yan Hongxia has been busy with the finishing work of the Qingyan Tower recently, and has no time to find him. As for Zheng Qingyan, she had already gone to the state capital before the caravan departed from Dunhuang, saying that she was going to help Zhao Chen lay the groundwork for what he was going to do later. A few days later, Zhao Chen and his party, who had exchanged carriages at Blackwind Castle, finally returned to Human County City after more than half a month away. Since Zhao Chen was now well known, the journey was quite peaceful, and no blind horse thieves or bandits dared to harass him. Even if they were not afraid of Zhao Chen, they were very afraid of the female knights behind him, such as Zheng Qingyan and Yan Hongxia. Zhao Chen ignored the unloading of the caravan and entered the city first with a little black cat. However, the moment he crossed the city gate, he suddenly saw Gong Yun's fur explode. His heart moved, and his ears had already detected the source of danger before his spiritual sense, and a bullet was shot at him at an extremely tricky angle. At this time, it was too late to fight back with the gunfighting technique, but Zhao Chen was not panicked at all, and the water moon phantom body technique was instantly launched. Then, he drew out the sunset sword in his hand, and used the dawn breaking move from the sword manual of the Chuang divine sword, to cut down the bullet before it turned. After doing all this, Zhao Chen did not feel proud at all, but jumped into a nearby civilian house as fast as possible to use it as a cover. Judging from the speed and power of the bullet, the gunner who shot at him was at least a master of gunfighting. Zhao Chen was able to cut down the opponent's bullet with his sword, of course, because of his good swordsmanship, but there was also a certain amount of luck. If he did it again, he might not be able to cut the opponent forward. He was able to act so calmly, but he was just relying on the confidence given by the purple ribbon vestments. It was not until then that the pedestrians at the city gate realized what had happened and panicked. Fortunately, the soldiers guarding the gate were well trained and quickly controlled the situation and sent a team to find the location of the gunner. Zhao Chen, who was hiding in the civilian house, was also on guard at this time, thinking to himself, who was the one who assassinated me? The Four Evils? The Star Society? Or the Heartlight Temple? I suddenly realized that I have offended quite a few organizations. Chapter 195 Kaozal. Among them, the grudge between the Four Evil Hall and me is the greatest. On the surface, it was me who destroyed the Z family. Although no one would believe that a cultivator who had just refined his orifices could defeat so many masters of the Z family, they would only think that Zheng Qingyan helped. But even if the remnants of the Z family knew this, they would definitely not dare to provoke Zheng Qingyan. It is normal for them to come after me. In fact, I was prepared for this when I passed by Blackwind Castle before, but I didn't expect that they would choose to make a move in Newman County City. It was really unexpected. It's a pity that they don't know my background, and they don't know that I have a cat that was originally in the Gangsha realm by my side. In addition, the All-Stars Association is also suspected. After all, Zhen Wen's son Zhen Fan has not been caught yet, and it is not impossible for them to find someone to retaliate against me, who made me the weakest on the surface. As for Xingyang Temple, although Fei Meng and I disrupted the plan of Golden Cicada to come, we did not show up directly, so we should. Wait, that's not right. I remember that the one who interrupted the arrival of Golden Cicada was the real Xingyang who was not dead at that time. It is normal for the people of Xingyang Temple to take revenge and focus on me, her little lover. So it seems that everyone is a suspect. As his thoughts turned, Zhao Chen stood up directly, walked out of the house that served as a shelter, and took out a silver note to compensate for the damage caused by the broken window just now. Gong Yun, who had been following him on guard, was a little puzzled by his actions. She felt that he should at least wait until the Manor Realm monks of the government arrived before going out, so as to prevent the assassin from attacking again. But Gong Yun reacted immediately and realized that Zhao Chen's support should have arrived, but she just didn't notice it. In fact, she guessed right. If her eye-breaking delusion could still be used, she would have discovered that at this moment, there was already a graceful and elegant young woman standing beside Zhao Chen. She was the captured supernatural power cultivator Tang Mao in the Battle of Qingyan Tower. Wan Daoi's divine wind was too loud, and he had also registered with Qinglian sword Li Fuan, so Zhao Chen did not choose to summon him. Fortunately, although Tang Mao's appearance fee was slightly more expensive than Wan Daoi, it was still affordable for Zhao Chen in the short term. With the range of Tang Mao's divine sense, it was easy to detect a hooded man who was moving between many buildings and avoiding the soldiers. Zhao Chen did not order Tang Mao to kill him immediately, but used the third-grade magical power Bidao Death Curse to add a temporary spell mark to him. The fleeing man felt a chill on his neck and touched his back, but he didn't touch anything. At this time, the pursuers were approaching, and he had to ignore this abnormality and turn to drill into a nearby sewer entrance. At the same time, Zhao Chen also ended the summons to Tang Mao and showed the 9th grade Evil Slayer sign to the soldiers, who came over to question him. "Sir, the Evil Slayer." Several soldiers hurriedly saluted. Zhao Chen nodded slightly, and just as he was about to deal with it simply, he saw a middle-aged man wearing armor and with a purple beard riding a horse and rushing over. The man on the horse was stunned at first, after seeing Zhao Chen's appearance, and then a smile appeared on his face. He turned over and dismounted, and asked enthusiastically, "But Bloodsword Young Master in person? Bloodsword Young Master? This is the Bloodsword Young Master who killed the two powerful families of the Z family and the Zhen family in succession? He is really good looking, no wonder he can fascinate so many famous female heroes." The brave onlookers around cast their eyes on Zhao Chen. Zhao Chen also recognized who the person was at this time. After all, the purple long beard was too distinctive. Even if he had never met him, he had heard of his name. This person is none other than Kaio Zhao, the purple-bearded King Kong who is ranked 9th on the human outstanding people list. He was originally the Yahoo captain in charge of the Yiren camp in Dunhuang. Unfortunately, he abandoned the army and fled when he encountered the magical battle between Song Weiru and Li Fuchen. He was impeached and stripped of his position. However, since the newly appointed Captain Yun Yuan was exposed for colluding with the four evil blades in private after the Qingyan Tower incident, Kaio Zhao's mind became active again. So after recognizing Zhao Chen, he deliberately stepped forward to make friends. After all, although the young man in front of him is average in strength, Yan Hangxia, Zheng Qingyan, and even Gong Yun behind him are all important figures in human. Zhao Chen was well aware of Kaio Zhao's little plan, but he was also happy to make friends with the master on the list of outstanding people, so he responded enthusiastically, "So it's Captain Kaio, the purple-bearded King Kong. I'm sorry, Mr. Chen, you are too polite." Kaio Zhao smiled even more when he heard that, and asked with concern, "I heard that an assassination occurred here. Is Mr. Chen injured? You are much older than me. Just call me Zhao Chen." Zhao Chen was polite again, shook his head and said, "Fortunately I was alert, otherwise the assassin might have succeeded." At this time, Qiao Zhao also reached out and took the bullet that was cut off by a sword, examined it carefully, and then looked at Zhao Chen with amazement in his eyes. "Zhao Chen, you really have a good swordsmanship." After a pause, he said solemnly, "Judging from the bullet, the assassin used a sniper musket. This is a weapon controlled by the court order, and ordinary workshops don't make it at all. It may have leaked from the military. In fact, even ordinary revolvers and semi-automatic pistols theoretically require a gun license issued by the court before they can be used. However, except for the Kyushu in the Central Plains, the rest of the states and counties are ruled by aristocratic families or clans, and few can strictly abide by them. Moreover, in a border area like Ganzhou, the gun license is even more useless. But even so, some high-powered firearms are strictly controlled by the military. Even masters trained by the military like Janssen have to use the corresponding spell combination if they want to use high-powered firearms. Leaking from the military. Are there people from secret organizations such as the Four Evil Hall hidden within the military? But choosing to expose yourself just to kill me is too childish, isn't it? No wonder the master said that the plans of these organizations are often full of loopholes. Zhao Chen narrowed his eyes and didn't ask any more questions. After all, this is an internal military issue, and it is not something that he, a Taoist official, should intervene in the open. If you want to investigate, you have to do it secretly. The military will definitely give you an explanation for this matter. Qiao Zhao expressed his opinion first, and then said quite attentively, since the assassin failed, he might attack again. "Zhao Chen, why don't you stay with me first, and wait until the assassin is caught, before returning to the Golden Art Martial Arts Hall, okay?" Zhao Chen smiled, and shook his head. "Thank you for your kindness, but I still don't want to trouble you, Captain Qiao." As soon as he finished speaking, he looked behind Qiao Zhao, where a green cloud carrying a red figure had fallen from the sky. Update progress, 29/45. Chapter 196 Cloud Shadow Sect. The sewer system of Human County City was not very developed, and only a few sections were relatively spacious. The assassin who assassinated Zhao Chen did not enter the sewer to hide, but to cover up his own breath and get rid of the pursuers, so he quickly returned to the ground from another exit. Then, he entered the slums where all kinds of people mixed together, changed into another set of clothes in a shack, and pretended to be a worker, to find work in the dock area outside the East Gate. It was not until the evening that the assassin returned to the city again among the workers, and took the opportunity to sneak into an alley. Then, he knocked on a secret door several times at different intervals, and the door was opened from the inside. Behind the secret door was a downward staircase, connecting to a dark underground space. The assassin was obviously familiar with the environment here, and soon came to a table at the end of the space. "Jia-san, you failed." A faint voice came from behind the table. "Anything to say?" To reply to Lord Soulcatcher, "The reason why I failed is that the target information given by the employer is seriously inconsistent with the facts." The assassin named Jia-san argued, "The information shows that Zhao Chen only has one powerful big sun sword move, and the rest of his methods are mediocre. But in fact, he has opened at least 4 orifices. His soul power is strong, and his swordsmanship is even more superb. Among the awakened monks, his combat power is not far behind Janssen and Lu Zhen. Taking into account the life-saving items that may be given to Zhao Chen by Yan Hongxue and Zhen Qingyan, I suggest giving up the mission directly, or treat him as a cultivator in the mana realm." The man behind the table thought for a moment after hearing this, as if he was weighing the pros and cons. After a while, he said, "This is the first business after INC established a branch in Ganzhou. Even if it is the employer's responsibility, we cannot fail." At this point, he turned his head and asked another figure on the side of the table, "Where is Zhao Chen now?" Replying to the soul catcher, "Zhao Chen is in Yan Hongxue's mansion." A deep female voice responded, "Yan Hongxue? Although the Red Emperor Yang Yuan sword key is sharp, I also want to see it." The man behind the table chuckled, turned to Jia-san and ordered, "I will take over this task. In addition, your task has been changed to killing the employer." No one can fool us without paying the price. After that, he handed a stack of information to Jia-san. After Jia-san took it and glanced at it, he bowed and said, yes. But at this moment, Jia-san's face suddenly showed a strange expression, and then he fell to the ground, without any breath. And there was an obvious 7-star mark on his neck. The person behind the table was shocked, and his pupils dilated. He was about to open the secret passage to escape, but before he could move, he followed Jia-san's footsteps, and fell to the ground without a sound. A 7-star mark also appeared behind his neck. In this way, people in the underground space died one after another. After they all died, a graceful and elegant female figure appeared and put all the dead people into a bag. Northwest of Human, in the mansion of the Yan family. Yan Hongxia's father died early. Although her mother was still alive, she lived in Shanghai, the state capital, so this huge mansion had no one else living, except a few maids and old women. The person who tried to assassinate you was most likely a professional assassin. He retreated immediately after missing the first shot without hesitation. The people from the city patrol division failed to catch him, and it's hard to ask Uncle Lee to use his powers of divination in a matter like this. Yan Hongxia brought over a few plates and served Zhao Chen the dishes while talking about the follow-up progress of the assassination. And the military's self-examination has just begun, and they haven't yet locked on the source of the outflow of sniper muskets. Zhao Chen picked up the chopsticks and tried a few bites of each dish. He had to praise Sister Hongxia's outstanding cooking skills. Even very ordinary ingredients had a unique flavor. After tasting, Zhao Chen wiped his mouth, then looked at Yan Hongxia, who was only wearing home clothes in front of him, and asked with a smile, Sister Hongxia, do you know an organization called Yanxi? Yan Hongxia thought for a while and said, it was mentioned in the information of the Taoist office. It seems to be an assassination organization active in the Central Plains and Kaishu. They are headed by Xitigabha and the 10 Kings of Hell as the backbone. They claim that, as long as the price is paid, no one can be left unkilled. You mean, the person who assassinated you was from this organization? Since the Yanxi is not an evil organization that believes in demons, the Taoist office does not have much information about it, and Yan Hongxia does not know much either. It seems to be a branch of the Hall. Zhao Chen nodded, then clapped his hands, and 5 dead men appeared out of thin air and fell to the floor. Yan Hongxia was a little surprised at first, but she quickly reacted and guessed that the master had sent a monk with magical powers to help his followers vent their anger. As a Taoist official, Yan Hongxia has seen a lot of corpses, so she did not shy away from it. She squatted down and identified the identities of these people. Flying Thunder Gundeng Hui, Double-Tailed Scorpion Guanping, Desert Wolf Lang Zhongsheng. They are all famous knights and bandits in Ganzhou. The weakest is also a master who has opened the 7 orifices and has just formed an inner world. And the one at the head is Yunjizi, the 5th on the human outstanding people list. He is a traitor to the Yunying sect of Yiqing. Not only did he steal the sect's most precious treasure, the Yangxiao treasure crown, but after he betrayed his master, he also split up the sect's orthodox method, the Yangshi Danshu, and sold it at many gatherings. And later he joined a certain son of the Li family and became an outer sect steward. In addition, the only magical power of the Yunying sect fell, and they were no longer able to hunt him down, which allowed him to still live so comfortably. I didn't expect that he would secretly join the Yanxi and set up a new hall in Human. By the way, although the Yunying sect is unable to deal with him, the bounty on him is still there. As long as you bring his head to the door, the Yunying sect will present the complete copy of the Yangshi Danshu. Yan Hongxia's tone was a little sad. After all, it was only a short time ago, and 5 or 6 people were gone from the human outstanding people list. When the next issue of the magazine comes out, she is afraid that she will be in the top 10. The disappearance of these prodigies was more or less related to the young man in front of him, the traitor of the Yunying sect, Yangxiao Crown. Zhao Chen on the other side was moved by what he heard and asked carefully, I remember that the Zhaoguang Yunying book you studied is the practice of this sect, right? Yes. When Yunjizi split and sold the Yangshi Danshu, the Taoist office also bought a copy. Yan Hongxia nodded. Then do you know what kind of treasure the so-called Yangxiao crown is, and who got it in the end? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 197, Double Cultivation Again. The reason why Zhao Chen was so interested in the Yangxiu crown was because one of the missing parts of the Xingcha was called the Yangxiu Golden Crow Crown. The names were so similar, and the Xingcha parts were likely to be intertwined with him under the pull of fate, so he suspected that the lost treasure of the Yunying sect might have some connection with the Yangxiu Golden Crow Crown. Even if it was not the original, it could be a replica. He now regretted killing Yunjizi, the Pingbu Dengan, too quickly, otherwise there would be many ways to get the information he wanted. What does a cloud crown look like? I'm not sure, but I do know who it ended up in the hands of. Yan Hongxia smiled, pointed at Yunjizi, and said meaningfully, the reason why he took on the business of assassinating you may have something to do with that person. Zhao Chen thought for a moment, and understood who Yan Hongxia was referring to. He suddenly realized, so the young master of the Li family he joined is Li Yunfeng. Li Yunfeng, grandson of Li Fuchen, the head of the Li family, and the former son-in-law of the Che family. He pursued Zheng Qinggan for many days, but in the end he was confined to his house, and he also lost most of the Che family's property. As a result, Zheng Qinggan gave all the things to Zhao Chen. How could he not hate him? And Sister Hongxia pointed this out specifically. Was she trying to put on some eye drops for Zheng Qinggan? Yes, as far as I know, the cloud crown is in Li Yunfeng's hands, because it seems to contain the secret of magical power, and many mana realm cultivators have joined his hands. The secret of magical power. In fact, wearing it makes it easier to get the heaven and earth granted scroll, right? Of course, even among the Li family, few are qualified to know the existence of the scroll position. As his thoughts turned, Zhao Chen felt that his trip to the Li family soon might have another target. But before that, he still had to go to the Yunying sect in Yicheng first, collect the reward, and also investigate the details of the Yangxiu crown. While Zhao Chen was thinking, Yan Hongxia also carefully checked the letters, documents, seals and other evidence brought back by Tang Mao. Since the Yinsi Hall in Newman had just opened not long ago, the management was a bit chaotic, and many secrets had not been destroyed in time, so Yan Hongxia easily found clues and locked the identity of the person who hired the Yinsi to assassinate Zhao Chen. It turned out to be Jizin. It seems that he really hates you. That sniper musket should have flowed out of his hands. After all, he was assigned to the logistics department after his true energy was exhausted. Yan Hongxia said suddenly. At the same time, she felt a little guilty. After all, she had just played a trick on Zheng Qinggan, and she found out that she might have contributed to it. Jizin. Zhao Chen recalled for a while, before remembering who this person was. He was speechless and said, he was jealous, and brought Huang Ji, the owner of Yukifang, to trouble me, but he was crippled by Huang Ji. Can I be blamed for this? Even if he wants revenge, shouldn't he go to Huang Ji? Huang Ji is the second-ranked Gangsha perfection master on the human Renji list. How could Jizin have the courage to go to him for revenge? Compared to that, you are easier to deal with. Even hiring a killer is cheaper. Yan Hongxia sneered. Of course, she was not targeting Zhao Chen, but Jizin, who was angry at others. In her eyes, Zhao Chen, who had a master behind him, might be the most difficult person to kill in the entire human. As for this, the black cat, who had been listening with his ears perked up, also nodded in agreement. In the final analysis, it's still bullying the weak and fearing the strong. Zhao Chen suddenly felt that the nickname Blood Sword Young Master that he disliked was not bad. At least it helped him block the covetousness of many scoundrels. Otherwise, he would probably have no peace now. Apart from other things, there are probably many people who are thinking about the inheritance of the Che family, especially the portrait of the happy bodhisattva. It's just that no one dares to rob it openly because of Zheng Qinggan's strength. However, this is also the price I have to pay to conceal the rapid improvement of my cultivation. Sighing slightly, Zhao Chen pointed to the remaining corpses, except Yan Jizi, and said, "Submit them and the evidence to the military and the county governor's office for me." Jizin was a military man after all, and it was not easy for him to deal with him privately. But not to mention hiring a killer. Even if it was the private sale of controlled firearms, it would be enough to enforce military law. As for Li Yunfeng, after arriving at the state capital, there are still places where he can be used, so let him go for the time being. After all, he had to plan the Li family's skills, so Zhao Chen was still relatively tolerant of him. Okay. After Yan Hongxia stuffed the remaining bodies and evidence into a storage bag provided by Zhao Chen, she walked away with mist under her feet. About 10 minutes later, she returned to Zhao Chen. The two chatted for a while, until the night deepened. Seeing that Yan Hongxia had no intention of going to rest, Zhao Chen immediately understood what she meant, so he said shamelessly, "Sister Hongxia, there is no official business tonight, right?" Yan Hongxia blushed and said in a barely audible voice. The reason why she did not take the initiative to leave was exactly what Zhao Chen thought. First, it was impossible to raise the quality of Black Emperor's blood passing sword ki to the level of Red Emperor's nourishing yuan sword ki by herself. Second, it was also because through dual cultivation with Zhao Chen, she had found that her foundation was becoming more and more solid and perfect, and even her cultivation qualifications had been improved to a certain extent. Third, her soul power was more condensed, and the progress of condensing the soul and gathering the spirit was much faster. Both her body and soul were eager to practice dual cultivation with Zhao Chen. Zhao Chen was also delighted when he got the response from Sister Hongxia. He picked up the little black cat and threw it out of the room. Then he blocked the whole room with the formation diagram of the Shangmingjiao formation obtained from Chenlu Villa. After doing all this, Zhao Chen took out the portrait of the happy bodhisattva from the storage bag and hung it aside. Then he said to Yan Hongxia, "Let's get started." Even though she had experienced it once, Yan Hongxia, who was still very shy, did not respond. She just stretched out her hand and silently unbuttoned the collar of her home clothes. In the yard, the black cat who was thrown out was quite indignant. After all, it was one thing for her to avoid intimate scenes on her own initiative, and it was another thing to be forced out by someone. But as a cat, she could only swallow her anger at the moment. After all, she had to rely on the other party's flute to heal her wounds, and it was not good to just leave. I hope he still has the strength to play music after a night of music and singing. Besides, why did he drive me out when he was intimate with Yan Hongxia? Have you discovered my true identity? On the other side, in the logistics department of human camp, when purple-bearded King Khan Kao Zhao personally led people to capture Jizin, he found that the latter had committed suicide by swallowing a bullet. Chapter 198 The Dawn Dies Red. North of Human City, the Li family's residence. After carefully observing the bodies on the ground, Li Fuan, the Blue Lotus Sword, said to the county governor's offering, life-seeking longevity star Hao Shangxing, who was beside him, "If I'm not mistaken, these people were all hit by the Bidao death curse in the 7-star divine mantra sutra, right?" Hao Shangxing, with an unusually protruding forehead, nodded seriously. "It is indeed the 7-star divine mantra sutra, provided to the children of other surnames by the Jinsao Mu family, and only the best of the in-laws have the opportunity to learn it. He was born in Jinsao and knew the Mu family well. It seems that this blood sword young master is really a bit tricky. In addition to being favored by the Zheng family's genius, there is actually a supernatural power following him secretly." Li Fuan said with a smile, after counting with his fingers. "Did you calculate his specific identity?" Hao Shangxing asked curiously. "The other party has a 3rd-grade supernatural power. How can I calculate it with my little Taoism? I can only roughly determine that it is a young female supernatural power." Li Fuan shook her head and continued, "If you want to know who it is, I'm afraid we have to go to Jinsao to investigate before we can get any results." Hao Shangxing touched his protruding forehead and said with a smile, "Then there is no need. It is normal for a cultivator with supernatural powers to travel and seek opportunities for Dongsun. Since she doesn't want to reveal her identity, it would offend the other party if she goes to find out the truth." Indeed. Hey, since there are supernatural powers who stand up for that blood sword young master, plus the Sakura dragon fairy, this matter must be explained to the other party. Li Fuan sighed. Did your Li Yunfeng really intervene? Wasn't he under house arrest? Hao Shangxing asked in surprise. That child is spoiled, and unlike the county magistrate, he is not self-aware, so it is inevitable that he will do things in an extreme way. Of course, the Sakura dragon fairy is not very authentic, but who can blame her for having a noble family behind her? Li Fuan sighed again and said, fortunately, he was smart this time and knew to send someone to instigate a soldier who had a grudge against Zhao Chen to hire a murderer. Now, as long as a soldier cannot speak and make up a story about the mastermind behind the scenes of the All-Stars Association or the Four Evil Hall, I think the Bloodsword young master will accept it. Anyway, the soldier named Jizin is not innocent. The mere charge of privately selling controlled firearms is enough to execute him immediately. It can be seen that the turmoil in your Li family is still not over. If it were in the past, why would you have gone to so much trouble to satisfy a cultivator who has refined his orifices? Even if the other party has two magical powers backing him up. Hao Shangxing shook his head, hinting at something. Li Fuan smiled bitterly and said, isn't it the fault of Li Fuchen? Fortunately, it's only been a few months. When Master Yunzi returns from the East China Sea, things won't be like this now. This time, the Yunzi extended its hand into human, probably to test the power of the Li family. In a sense, you, the Li family, should actually thank that Master Chen for catching them all in one fell swoop so quickly. Hao Shangxing teased. Yunzi, I only know that this is an assassin organization that was established in the past decade or so, and there should be a Dongsuan Zenran behind it. But this organization is actually very loose, and joining and leaving are very casual. Well, it's a bit like the Adventurers Guild in the West. At this point, Li Fuan asked carefully, do you know the details of this organization? It can be active in the Central Plains and Jiuzhou. I don't believe that it has nothing to do with the court, the royal family, and the prime minister. Hao Shangxing laughed and said no more. At this time, purple-bearded King Khan Kaio Zhao suddenly asked for a meeting and brought the news that Jizin had committed suicide. Hearing this, Li Fuan showed a surprised expression and hurriedly counted on his fingers again. Although he thought about making Jizin unable to speak, he had to do so after he confessed, but he never arranged him to commit suicide out of fear of crime. After a moment, Li Fuan looked at Hao Shangxing who was watching the show on the side, and said awkwardly, Brother Hao, it seems that my words have come true. There really is someone from an evil organization behind Jizin's incident. Jizin was silenced. Hearing about the evil organization, Hao Shangxing also became serious. After all, in the previous Shifu Temple incident, if Zheng Qinggan had not taken action, he and Li Fuan might not be able to defeat the evil spirit possessed by Che Yugang. He frowned and asked, which one is it? Four Evils Hall or All Stars Club? I think this method of inducing suicide is more like Xingyang Temple, but I can't be sure. As he said that, Li Fuan directly called his son Green Robe young master Li Changsheng and ordered, go and check the origins of Yun Feng's followers. Remember, check secretly and try not to alarm them. Li Changsheng was reluctant to take this job. After all, he was still looking for Ma Guanglian's whereabouts, and he already had some clues. If he was distracted at this juncture, he might lose the other party's trace, and it would be difficult to find him again. But he also knew that this kind of work of investigating his own family members was not easy for his father's other men to do except himself. Therefore, he finally accepted the order and left. There is no wind in the empty hole, and the secret room is safe. It is really majestic, and the morning light dyes the clouds red. Northwest of Human, in the Yan family mansion, Zhao Chen and Yan Hongxia's double cultivation lasted for 3 days and 3 nights, until the former's Black Emperor Tangsu transformation of the 5 immortal spiritual true ki was fully practiced, and the latter's Black Emperor Tangsu sword ki was improved to the level of Red Emperor Yang Yuan sword ki, and then they each ended their practice, retracting his hands that were wrapped around Yan Hongxia in a special posture. Zhao Chen tried to calm his fluctuating emotions with the help of visualization. Yan Hongxia also stood up and sorted out her clothes after a while. After both of them were dressed neatly, Zhao Chen took back the portrait of the joyful bodhisattva and removed the formation diagram, allowing the small room to return to its original appearance. 3 days have passed directly. Yan Hongxia has practiced in seclusion before, but she has never gained so much as this double cultivation. She feels that, if she and Zhao Chen do this again, her magic power is likely to enter the 5th level. Such a speed, even double cultivation is a bit amazing. If double cultivation is really so effective, I'm afraid that the whole world is full of double cultivation methods. So, only Zhao Chen and I can achieve this effect? Is it because our true ki and true essence attract each other, so it works wonders? When Yan Hongxia was thinking, a little black cat ran over quickly and jumped directly into Zhao Chen's arms, complaining in its heart, "You guys are so happy. Do you know how I got through the past 3 days? Update progress, 30/45. Chapter 199 The Real Murderer. In the small garden of the Yan family mansion, Zhao Chen sat cross-legged on the ground, looking quite unrestrained and uninhibited. In front of him was a guqin, and next to him was a copper stove with a wisp of sandalwood burning. This guqin was the Jiuxiao Huanpei he brought out from the Chenlu villa, which was suspected to be Zhang Yunlu's personal belongings. Unfortunately, due to its age, the guqin had long lost its spirituality, and it had to be nourished day and night by the master of the guqin to recover. At this time, Zhao Chen, wearing a loose robe, opened his sleeves, pressed the strings of the guqin with both hands, and played impromptu. The sound of the guqin was sometimes clear, like a mountain stream, with a profound artistic conception. Sometimes it was gentle, like a lover's whisper, lingering and sad. And the 5 immortal spiritual ki, which had 3 states of Huangdi Zongsu, Chidi Yangyuan and Hidi Tongsu, also accompanied the sound of the guqin, exuding its own magic. The maids and servants in the Yan mansion couldn't help but put down their work and stop to listen. Even those who knew nothing about music were also attracted and felt close to and admired Zhao Chen, who played the piano from the bottom of their hearts. Of course, the one who was most affected, or benefited the most, was Gong Yun, who turned into a little black cat. Bathed in the sound of the piano, she felt that her body and mind had been purified, and the stubborn power from Feng Qing in her body also showed signs of loosening. If his true ki 5 emperors were complete, and the inner world was formed, it would probably help my injury more. Unfortunately, after being injured by Feng Qing's flying snow divine sound, I couldn't contact the master, and couldn't exchange the relevant items to help Zhao Chen practice. While Gong Yun was feeling regretful in her heart, Zhao Chen glanced at her inconspicuously. "Master? After keeping this female night gong by my side for so long, I finally heard some useful information." As his thoughts turned, Zhao Chen's piano music suddenly changed a little, adding the slightly immature Green Emperor soul protection. The Green Emperor protects the soul internally and can also confuse the soul externally. However, Zhao Chen was also a beginner in Green Emperor soul protection, so it was naturally impossible for him to have much impact on the Black Cat Gong Yun, so he also tried to incorporate some methods of joyful bodhisattva and suspicious word suggestion. Of course, in order to avoid Gong Yun's detection, he only tried it briefly, with the goal of arousing her thoughts, and did not pursue the idea of really controlling her. Perhaps because Gong Yun was in a seriously injured state, his attempt was very successful, and the other party unconsciously associated her mind with things related to the master. Master regularly issues tasks, and you can get contribution points by completing them in exchange for various skills and treasures. The Eye That Breaks Delusion and the Art of Transfiguration are the spells that come with the 6th grade talisman, and both can be temporarily enhanced by consuming contributions. As long as the contributions are sufficient, the temporary effect can even surpass ordinary magical powers. The Art of Transfiguration can currently only change between a human and a black cat, but the appearance after becoming a human can be adjusted. After spending contributions to enhance the effect, you can transform into a mighty black tiger. In this state, the power of your innate spells except the Eye That Breaks Delusion is doubled. The tasks of the master are varied. Some are very simple, even planting a tree or running errands for others can become tasks. Some are very troublesome. For example, the news that Kyung-ho was about to be born in Yunzhou caused her to be almost calculated by the Flower God sect. In addition, the master has never shown his face, and his style of doing things is rather rigid. Gong Yun guessed that the other party is not a human, but the spirit of a certain spiritual treasure, and she herself didn't know why she was chosen by the master to become his agent. Feeling Gong Yun's messy thoughts, although Zhao Chen was quite interested in the master. After all, his function was very similar to that of the Star Chariot, and there might be some connection. But he still stopped the action of continuing to guide. After all, Gong Yun is a gangsha cultivator no matter what, and once he crosses a line, he is likely to be discovered by him. At that time, if he provokes the other party's master, it will not end well. The sound of the piano returned to its original rhythm, as if it was just an unsatisfactory attempt at the Green Emperor Soul Guardian state, which also made Gong Yun not think too much about her uneasy mood. After a few minutes, Zhao Chen stopped playing and took a sip of the tea beside him. At this time, Yan Hongxia, who was dressed in casual clothes and had picturesque features, walked over slowly. Her elegance was different from her charm when she was wearing official uniform. She looked at Zhao Chen, who was teasing the little black cat, and sat down beside him and asked, "Li Changsheng is here and is in the main hall right now. Do you want to go and see him? Sixth brother is here." The little black cat pricked up her ears. Among several sworn brothers and sisters, the sixth brother Li Changsheng was the one she could not figure out the most. His luck and destiny were even stronger than his magical powers, but he was just a magical cultivator who had hidden his cultivation. This did not make sense, no matter how you looked at it. It seems that the investigation has produced results. Zhao Chen smiled, stretched out his hand to touch the kitten's chin, and said, "Of course I have to go. I also want to know who is targeting me." After that, he stood up directly, walked through the garden with Yan Hongxia, and entered the main courtyard of the Yan mansion. The young master in green robe Li Changsheng still had the same look of powder and rouge, with dark circles under his eyes. When he saw Zhao Chen, he took the initiative to step forward and said with a smile, "Last time at the Black Cloud Martial Arts School, I knew that brother Zhao was no ordinary person. Who would have thought that it has only been half a month, and he has become famous in human? At that time, I said that brother Zhao and I had common interests, and I would have a good exchange of ideas later. It's a pity that I didn't have the time." "What to exchange ideas? Are you exchanging skills in the brothel? But I'm still a child. And now that you mention it, I always feel that what you said about famous inhuman is implying me." Zhao Chen complained in his heart, but on the surface he greeted the other party enthusiastically. Then, after they sat down, he asked about the Yinsi organization. The Yinsi organization is actually very loose. Except for the Ksitagarbha and the 10 kings of hell as the core, the other judges and soul catchers have a lot of personnel turnover. So you don't have to worry about being retaliated against for destroying one of their halls, because this is very likely something that Yun Jizi did privately, and the Yinsi headquarters just acquiesced at most. Li Changsheng just chatted about the matter of the underworld for a few words, and then passed it over, and turned to talk about the results of the investigation into the assassination. In fact, the mastermind who instigated Jizin to hire someone to assassinate you was the remnant of the Che family's Xingguan temple. She had been lurking beside Yun Feng's ex-wife, and was her personal maid. She was also protected by Yun Feng, which is why she avoided our initial round of screening. Some of Yun Feng's followers also had an affair with her, and were controlled by her. She targeted you this time, most likely because the Sakura Dragon Fairy gave you something valuable from the Che family. Chapter 200. It's a rare thing to be ignorant. The valuable things of the Che family. The thing that could be coveted by a hidden member of the Xingguan temple must not be the 8 treasures building, then it can only be the portrait of the joyful bodhisattva. According to Zheng Qinggyan, the joyful bodhisattva corresponding to the portrait is currently sealed in a cave world by Shengxuan's engine of the Meng family in Kingshao, and the main consciousness has not yet awakened. Could it be that the Xingguan temple intends to wake up or rescue the other party? No. It is more likely to tempt the other party to fall. After all, although this joyful bodhisattva was sealed, he is not a demon. With his thoughts in a trance, Zhao Chen looked at Li Changsheng sitting opposite him and asked, "Have the remnants of the Xingguan temple been caught?" In this regard, he actually did not hold any hope. After all, the other party was not a fool. After knowing that the assassination failed and the Yinsi branch was wiped out, he must have run away long ago. As expected, Li Changsheng shook his head and said, unfortunately, she was very cautious. After she knew that the assassination failed and Jizin was silenced, she disappeared. Hearing this, Zhao Chen frowned, because this didn't make sense. Since she had decided to escape, why would she deliberately kill Jizin and fake it as suicide? Isn't this a waste of effort? Unless she naively believed that after Jizin committed suicide, the Li family would stop investigating, and she would have a chance to continue lurking. But judging from her scheming, she would definitely not be so naive. What is she trying to cover up? Or, what more secret information does Jizin know? Seeing that Zhao Chen didn't speak, Li Changsheng continued, I know there are still many doubts here. For example, there may be other hidden reasons for Jizin's silence, but this should have nothing to do with the assassination of you. This was confirmed by my father and an elder of the Li family who is good at calculating the secrets of heaven. It has nothing to do with the assassination attempt on me. Jizin is really a weakling who dares to get involved in anything. But it is understandable. He was originally a talented cultivator with a bright future. However, he was abandoned one day. His mentality was inevitably unbalanced, and he was naturally easy to be used. Seeing that Li Changsheng didn't want to say more, there might be a scandal here. Let me guess. Could it be that the small group within the military that used Jizin to privately sell controlled weapons also included members of the Li family, and the reason for silencing them was because of this? Zhao Chen quickly thought of a possibility, but he was too lazy to pursue the truth. After a little thought, he asked, what is the name of the remnant of the Xingang temple? How strong is she? Does she have any other helpers around her? These are the things that deserve his attention. Upon hearing this, Li Changsheng also cast a look of approval, sighed it's rare to be confused, we are indeed people of the same kind, and then organized his sentences to answer. When that person pretended to be a maid, her name was Tanju, but this is definitely not her real name, so it is meaningless. Preliminary judgment is that she should have the strength of the 3rd to 5th level of magic power, but she has mastered several kinds of mental spells, which is weird and hard to defend against. In addition, 2 of Yunfeng's followers also disappeared with her. They are suspected of being seduced and controlled by her. They are all great masters of the 8th level of magic power. Well, one of them my 7 stars magic banner Yang Zicheng, and the other rises and snow cold knife Feng Sheng. 7 stars magic banner Yang Zicheng. Zhao Chen had heard of this name. It was introduced in the magazine called Ganzhou Chronicles that his master stuffed into his hand. Born in a small family of cultivators in Shanzhou, he inherited the legacy of a powerful cultivator by chance when he was young. As a result, he was coveted by many independent cultivators and small sects, and eventually his family was destroyed, and he himself left home. More than 10 years later, Yang Zicheng returned with his magic power, and formed a large formation with 7 magic banners, killing all his enemies, and enslaving their souls. Since this was a private feud between cultivators, and did not affect ordinary people, the government did not intervene. But the enemies he killed also had relatives and friends, one of whom even worshipped in the Shanzhou sect Fian Mountain, whose strength was far superior to Yang Zicheng. As a last resort, this 7 Yao magic banner came to Ganzhou, and became a guest of Li Yunfeng. Just looking at his experience, he can be regarded as the protagonist of a revenge drama, so why was he bewitched by the witch? Zhao Chen complained in his heart, while listening to Li Changsheng's introduction of Ice and Snow Cold Blade Feng Sheng. Feng Sheng was born in a branch of the Feng family, a prominent family in Ningzhou. The reason why he joined Yunfeng's school was probably to seek an opportunity to become a supernatural power. The witch from Xinguan Temple might have seduced him with this. So, the possibility of them attacking me has greatly increased. After all, King Iron said that this portrait of joyful bodhisattva on my body may grant me a 5th grade position, as long as it can provide enough innate fairy spirit. Although I have 2 powerful monks to protect me, it is still a little dangerous if I'm attacked by surprise. The purple ribbon robe may not be able to protect me completely under the attack of a monk with 8 levels of magic power. Fortunately, in the previous assassination, I asked Tang Mao to use thundering means to clean up the people from the underworld, forming an effective deterrent. They probably don't dare to attack me rashly now. In other words, hiring a killer to kill me was originally a test of the defense power around me by the remnant of Xingyan Temple. Thinking of this, Zhao Chen's mind suddenly became clear, and he had no more doubts. He clasped his fists to Li Changsheng and said, "Thank you, Brother Li, for telling me." Li Changsheng waved his hands and said, "This is the trouble caused by the children of my Li family. We are the ones who are sorry to you, Brother Zhao." As he said that, he took out a small metal box from his arms, pushed it in front of Zhao Chen and said, "This is a small compensation from my Li family. I hope you can accept it." Zhao Chen used his spiritual sense to scan it, and found that it was golden sand condensed from the Genjin evil spirit required for practicing the White Emperor Shippo sword key. Zheng Qingyan had to report to the Li family about giving the White Emperor Shippo sword out to Zhao Chen, so the Li family took out this evil spirit as compensation. But Zhao Chen actually didn't need this evil spirit. After all, he wouldn't really major in the Li family sword art. It was just a reference. But he still took it directly. He didn't need it, but Yan Hongxia did, and once Yan Hongxia cultivated the White Emperor Shippo sword key, she could in turn help him practice the corresponding true key changes. Seeing that he accepted the compensation, and didn't pursue Li Yunfeng's affairs anymore, the young master in green robe also smiled. Next, Li Changsheng talked about a lot of insights on cultivation, which made Zhao Chen feel that he had benefited a lot. Then he got up and said goodbye and left the Yan family mansion. Before walking out of the gate, Li Changsheng turned around nonchalantly, glanced at the black cat lying on the wall, and smiled meaningfully. "It's rare to be confused," he said to himself, and then rode away without looking back. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.